Hey everybody, Chris, the old-ass retro gamer here, back for something completely different. Been doing all these video game collection live streams since last year. And last week that ended. Last week I talked about the newest console that I have in my collection that I do collect for, and that was the Switch. And after that, it's like, what do you talk about next? Because I like doing these streams. I think they're really fun. And since I'm lacking on edited content recently, trying to get back into it, trust me, doing the little collaboration with Captain Algebra kind of got me back into the groove. I figured I wanted to keep doing these for the meantime. And what's the other thing I collect? That would be movies. I've seen movies. Hey, how is everybody doing tonight? Thanks, Rika4. I found that online somewhere. I'm not going to say where. What's up, 8-Bit Glitch? And what's up, Peter? How's it going, everybody? So, if you're not already in the know, I'm a filmmaker. I wanted to be a filmmaker ever since I was a little kid. Movies were my first love. First thing I ever became fascinated with was films. Obviously I'm still a huge film fan, more so than video games. But there are... I'm trying to think of a way to say this. Trying to think of how to say this properly. It's just not. It just kind of disappeared off my screen. I got sidetracked. Anyway, yeah, I'm a filmmaker, and I've always been fascinated with films. Old, new, doesn't really matter. I like crap. I like stuff that's considered avant-garde. I like stuff that's Oscar fodder. I like everything, unless it's Battlefield Earth. But I just enjoy watching movies. I enjoy discussing movies. I try to discuss movies with anyone in range of me, usually. I like movies so much I do a podcast with a performer friend of mine called The Movie Is Starting, where we basically have a guest come on our podcast, picks a movie from their youth that they really love, and we watch the movie together and create a commentary track. So movies are in my blood. They're my thing. So I thought it'd be really fun to start talking about the movies that I have in my collection, since we're all being socially distanced and all that. So, it's a cool way to talk to people about a subject that I'm really interested in. Apparently, a lot of people are, because there's more people here for the beginning of one of my streams than I think I've ever had before. So thank you for coming. Let's get into it. So what I have today is my very small Blu-ray collection. I have gone the way of the Blu-ray, and now I'm on the 4K train also. So I don't really have a lot of DVDs. The only reason I still have DVDs in my collection is because the movie that I have on DVD is not available on Blu-ray at all, and it's the only way I can still have a copy of my own to watch. Or it's something special that I refuse to get rid of. Something limited, something rare, possibly. I also have, when it comes to my DVDs, I have my TV shows mixed in with the movies. Normally, with my regular collection with the Blu-rays and the the 4K stuff, I separate the TV shows from the movies. I also separate anything that's in a box set from the standard movies, because the shelving unit that I have fits just so many Blu-rays on a shelf. It's perfect. They all fit in there perfectly, on one section of shelf, a certain amount. Anything that goes past the width of a standard Blu-ray case offsets the whole thing. So all of a sudden I have a space left in between, or everything's crammed in there so tight I can't pull a movie off the shelf. So I take anything that's wider than a standard Blu-ray case and I put it on a separate shelf with all these box sets. So what I'm going to talk about today are my DVDs, my TV Blu-rays, my TV show Blu-rays, and all my box set Blu-rays. And if there's still time, I will also maybe delve into some of the regular Blu-ray movies that I have on my shelf that I did not bring in here with me, because there's a lot of stuff here. And it's really, really heavy, because a lot of these have multiple discs in them. So shall we get going? So I'm going to start off with some special stuff. So my brother actually lives in LA. He is a filmmaker. He works in Hollywood. He's a director by trade, but hasn't really had any luck getting any projects off the ground. But he does a lot of editing work, does a lot of AD work and stuff like that, and he meets a lot of filmmakers and actors and whatnot. And one day he texted me and he was like, "So, I remember you saying that you really liked that movie Outlander." which I did. It's a movie with Jim Caviezel and Ron Perlman. It's like Vikings versus aliens type of movie. And I thought it was really fun. So he goes, well, I'm at the director's house. And he has like a stack of DVDs of Outlander sitting here. You want him to sign one for you? And I was like, that would be absolutely fantastic. So a few days later in the mail, I got a signed copy of Outlander from the director of the film, Howard McCain. My brother was meeting with him about some project that he was working on. So it says, to Chris, thanks for being a fan, Howard McCain. So I have this off to the side in my where my movies are, so it can be displayed. So there is that. And I also, I donated to an Indiegogo campaign for, I do believe it was Children's Hunger. And in return, your reward was, depending on how much you gave, it had to do with the movie Man of Steel, the Superman movie that came out in, was it 2013? And the tier that I donated to got me a signed copy of Man of Steel signed by Zack Snyder. So I also have this displayed right next to my copy of Outlander. It also came with a slip, but you can't see the signature without the slip, so there! They totally should, Neo Genesis. I totally agree. Totally. Totes. Magoats. Yes. I might be the person to make said film. Mark my words, it might happen. Probably not. Okay, so the next DVDs that I have are actually some of the movies that I've made. Some of the short films, some of the training films that I've made. I actually have these on DVD. This was shot way before HD was a thing. So the first thing is a training video that I did for my old employer. Wow, I can't talk. Employer, GE. I made a training video called 5S, 5 Steps to Success. I got a computer out of it. I got a camera out of it and all that because I talked them into things because I'm a con man. And this ended up going throughout the entire company of GE as a training tool about 5S as an organization tool. So that's probably the biggest thing I've done. Also have a short film that I made for a film race in 2008. Yep, 2008. Film race, it's like a competition that comes to different major cities. You pay like $100, and on a specific day you are given a topic to make a movie about, like a theme, and it has to include your film that you end up making has to have certain items. Sometimes a prop, like the one I did was one of them. The ones that I did, like the prop you had to have in there somewhere was a hammer. And there's certain stipulations. The film has to end up being a certain amount of time. It has to be a certain amount of length. And eventually it will get judged and voted on to see, out of all the people who submitted films, which ones are the best ones. The first time I did it, my short film was actually shown in a movie theater. I actually went to a movie theater and watched my film play up on screen. It was pretty fantastic. The second one that I did is this one. This was a 100-hour film race. So you had like 2 days. Was it 3 days? 3 or 4 days to do it? And it's called Dead Man's Party. Starred Kelly Kyorpus, who is an actress that I've been working with since 2008. I met her in Chicago when I was going to directing class. And my friend Noy. And it's like a film noir type of thing that I did. So there's that. Another training video that I did for GE was this Swims mockumentary, which never got shown because we were told when we were going to make this that since it was going to be an internal video, it wasn't going to go company-wide like the other one did, that we could have swearing in it, we could have violence, we could do anything we wanted as long as there wasn't any nudity in it. And we took them to their word, and we made a completely nuts training video. And while I did show it to pretty much everybody in the facility that I worked at, everybody seemed to enjoy the hell out of it. It was deemed inappropriate. It was not allowed to be shown officially. So there's that. But that's probably one of the most fun things I've done, was that Swims mockumentary. And then you can see evidence of this on my channel if you go way, way back. I did a Star Wars fan film, actually a trilogy of Star Wars fan films back in the early 2000s. This is the first film. It's called Star Wars Pathways, Path of Betrayal. Started a bunch of friends of mine who are huge Star Wars fans. That's the only reason I was able to make this, was because, actors want to get paid. friends do it because it's fun. So, yeah, I made this one. We did film 2 sequels. We weren't able to finish the 3rd one because the lead actress ended up hurting herself at her employer, or her place of work, and we couldn't film the final fight scene, so that ended up dying. But the 2nd film was completed, or we filmed the whole thing. I did edit it together. It is never, because of the 3rd film is never going to be done. I never really went back and did all the special effect and sound editing work that needed to be done to the 2nd movie. But it is available on YouTube, on my channel. If you go way back, you can see the rough cut. I did post that there. So, yeah, there's that. All right, now into the real stuff. So, like I said, TV shows mixed in with the standard DVDs. So, my mother I went to visit her like 4 months ago, and she wanted to pare down her DVD and Blu-ray collection. Most of it belonged to my dad from before he died. And she was like, yeah, I don't watch half this stuff. Let's go through it and figure out what I can keep, what stuff that she would actually want to watch and what she can get rid of. Like, she's not into horror movies, thrillers, things with a lot of violence in it she's not really into. So we went through her entire collection to pull out the stuff she didn't want. And she didn't want this and something else that's coming up right next. This is the entire box set, the entire collection of Angel, seasons 1 through 5 on DVD. This thing is absolutely crazy, absolute craziness. My dad had bought this. It was still sealed when I brought it, when I was looking at it with my mother. And I was like, if you don't want it, I'll take it home, because I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer and I love Angel. Angel's actually my favorite of the 2 shows. So yeah, you're damn right I was taking this home. It comes with this like art book with like descriptions of episodes and stuff like that. What is this thing? It comes with an envelope of some sort. Oh, it's a letter from Mutant Enemy. Okay, whatever. But yeah, Angel, if you don't know, is like a spin-off from Buffy the Vampire Slayer's TV show. Follows the Angel character. He goes to LA to be a private detective. And I found it to be a superior show to Buffy, because Buffy can be kind of like a self-centered character who puts her friends in danger more often than she shouldn't, because she thinks of herself before she thinks of anyone else. But Angel is one of my favorite shows of all time, so I absolutely had to take this. Never been available on Blu-ray. And after seeing the HD treatment that Buffy the Vampire Slayer got on, what was it, FX or whatever it was, I'm glad that they didn't, because they botched that royally. But at the same time, I got the box set of Angel. My dad also had all 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I took those as well. I'm actually currently watching or rewatching these. I'm on season 3 right now with Faith and the whole graduating from high school thing. But you got season 2 with the whole Buffy and Angel thing going on, where he turns bad and starts offing all of her friends and stuff. It's a great show. It does have problems, I think, that I think people seem to ignore, is the fact that Buffy is not a very smart person. She does things to put her friends in danger more often than anything else, than actually saving people. But it's a great show. I love it. I actually did a tabletop RPG, like Dungeons & Dragons game, based in the Whedon Buffy Angelverse. So, I don't understand why we never got The Abyss on Blu-ray. I don't know. So this is the special edition of The Abyss that has it's the extended cut that Cameron made that was available on Laserdisc. It ended up coming to Blu-ray. Never came to DVD, it was released on DVD. That's where I bought it from originally. And never came to Blu-ray for whatever reason. I don't understand it. So, it's a 2-disc set, has the extended cut of the movie and a feature-length documentary that is actually more fascinating than the movie itself. But it's a great movie. James Cameron, absolutely love it. The original cut of the movie is okay, I think. The ending is just kind of out of nowhere, and that's, I think, the problem I always had, is because they cut the original ending to pieces, because it would have been too expensive, and the movie would have drawn out a little bit longer than normal. So when they put all the stuff back in, all of a sudden this movie makes perfect sense. It is fantastic. I wish we would get a version or the special edition of this on Blu-ray. James Cameron, he's making 15 Avatar movies right now. He can't say, hey, by the way, guys, how about that Abyss thing? Let's make that happen. Also, Amazon Women on the Moon. This is like Kentucky Fried Movie, if you've ever seen that. It's like a sketch comedy movie. It's all made up of short little sketches featuring some well-known stars, some not so well-known stars. You know, you got people like Arsenio Hall's in here, Michelle Pfeiffer. Oh, God, I can't remember. There's so many people. It just says starring lots of actors on the back, which is great. It's a really funny movie. If you've ever seen Kentucky Fried Movie, this is basically like an unofficial sequel. But the whole idea is like you're switching channels, and this is all the crazy stuff you come up against while you're flipping channels, watching TV. Like, there's a wraparound thing of a cheesy 1950s sci-fi movie that whoever is flipping the channels is watching, and you get to see snippets of that fake movie throughout the movie as the guy's changing the channels. It's really funny. Also, I think this is available on Blu-ray, but I'm not going to buy it because I don't think it's an official Blu-ray. So I still have a copy of The Black Hole, which is probably one of my favorite underrated Disney films. I saw this in the theater back in 1979 when it was first released, and it scared the hell out of me. It, on the surface, looks like a Star Wars ripoff because there's a robot in it that has sass. And, there's other robot things in it that look like C-3PO a little bit, but they're bad guys. There's spaceships. It's in outer space to begin with. Yeah, there's a lot of... this was made to capitalize on Star Wars. It is nothing like Star Wars. It's a Gothic horror movie in space. And I absolutely love it. I will not part with my copy of this until an official Blu-ray or 4K version comes out. It is actually streaming on Disney Plus in HD, which is fantastic. I think I've watched it twice already. But it's a great movie, great set designs, great model work. Everything about it is fantastic. It does have some issues toward the end, but I'm able to overlook them because nostalgia, because I saw that in the theater. This is one of the few movies, I think I said this last week in my Switch stream, that when it comes to movies, unlike video games, I rarely ever buy a movie without having seen it before. I only buy movies I like. There's cases, of course, where things that are going direct to video and stuff like that happen, and you can either rent it or you can download it illegally or whatever. I bought this because of what it came with, but I still haven't watched the movie. It's still sealed. It's a ComicCon Episode 4, A Fan's Hope. It's ComicCon the movie. I still haven't seen it, but it's all about, I guess, a day into ComicCon, San Diego Comic-Con, most likely. I bought it because it came with 4 exclusive HeroClix figures. This was when I was into HeroClix. I used to play it with my friends all the time. It came with a Joss Whedon HeroClix, a Stan Lee, Morgan Spurlock, the Super Size Me guy, and one of Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News. So that's the reason I wanted it, was because I wanted to get those exclusive HeroClix, but I still haven't. I keep forgetting that I own this and I need to watch it. But I know Mark Hamill's in it and a bunch of other people, so I'll watch it eventually. It's just not super high on my list. Maybe I'll just get rid of it and keep the HeroClix. Who knows? Here's something that I actually got at Gen Con. Jesus. 5-6 years ago. What's the name of his band? Midnight Syndicate. It's Midnight Syndicate is an instrumental band. They do music that you're supposed to listen to while you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. But the guy who's the main person in the band decided one day that he wanted to make a movie. And I went to Gen Con that year, and the reason I went was because there was all these filmmaker panels that you could go to. And I went to every single one of them. It was there was one about financing your film project. There was one about, casting, directing, making the most of your money, all this kind of stuff. And I went to every single panel, and the guy from Midnight Syndicate, what's his name? Edward Douglas, was there for each one of them, and he kept on talking about this movie that he made called The Dead Matter, or The Dead Matter. And I wanted to see it, so I ran out to his table outside or actually it was in the dealer's hall, and got a copy of it, signed by him. It's like a horror movie, but it's really super low budget, and honestly, I don't think it's the greatest thing ever. It's actually not that good at all. But it's cool to have. I was there to support, so I did. It's a decent movie, and it actually comes with a soundtrack. I think that's supposed to be the soundtrack, or is it just a Midnight Syndicate CD? But there's the movie. Oh, here's the motion picture soundtrack, and it also comes with a bonus CD of his music. So there's that. I was wondering why this was so heavy. But it says The Dead Do Matter, signed by Edward Douglas. The Hero Clicks tabletop game. I used to play it all the time. I have like the Street Fighter characters over there in the other room. I still have the Street Fighter ones. I got rid of everything though. Everything is gone except the Street Fighter ones and the ones I got from the ComicCon box set that I bought. Here's another one that I will never get rid of until a Blu-ray comes out. Maybe even a director's cut would be nice. We're talking Deadly Friend. Wes Craven's Deadly Friend. Made this a couple years after Nightmare on Elm Street. And Wes Craven was trying to do something different in his career. He was trying to move away from making horror movies, and this is based on a book called Friend, which is like a teen thriller. It's about a kid who is like a robotics genius. He's like 13 or 14, and he's already going to college and all that kind of stuff. And this girl that he moves next door to, that he falls in love with, gets killed by her father, who's like a drunk. And he brings her back to life with technology, and she starts killing people in the neighborhood that threatened her when she was alive. But in the book, it wasn't super violent. And Wes Craven shot the movie just like the book, except the ending. And he shot it like not really gory. It was supposed to be rated PG. Like I said, it's supposed to be like a teen thriller. And then the suits saw it and were like, where's the gore? You're Mr. Nightmare on Elm Street guy. You're Mr. Hills Have Eyes. Where's all the gore? So they made him go back and like reshoot all these really kind of ridiculous gore scenes, like a woman getting her head destroyed or blown up by a basketball. Gets thrown at her head. And it's fantastic to watch. It's an awesome kill scene, but it's just kind of like, what? But I had a huge crush on Christy Swanson when I was a little kid, so that's one of the reasons I used to watch this all the time, but it's still a very fun 80s horror movie. Yeah, damn right. I figured this was the perfect stream to wear my Krull shirt. Next up is another, like, the people that made this movie were on those panels that I saw at Gen Con the year that I met the guy from Dead Matter. And it's the guys from Dead Gentleman Productions. They did Demon Hunters and Demon Hunters 2. This is part 2. It's called Dead Camper Lake. They also did The Gamers. There's a couple movies in the Gamers series. They're like a improv troupe from some Lutheran college. I can't remember from where. And they just started making movies on campus, and this was one of them. This is the sequel. It actually has the first movie on disc as an extra. They're not great, but, I mean, the kids are ambitious. I'll give them that. And it's fun to watch because it's like a cheesy-ass horror comedy. I really enjoyed it. I would love to meet the actual, like, stars of these movies at some point, but I just met the guy that produced it and directed it. Got this at Gen Con also. It's called Done the Impossible, The Fan's Tale of Firefly and Serenity. It's a documentary about Firefly and Serenity fans. And I'm a huge Firefly fan, so I absolutely had to have this. It's a decent documentary. It's a little amateur hour-ish, but it's good. Here's a cool one. Okay, so one of my favorite filmmakers is Richard Stanley. He did this movie called Hardware that came out in 1990. I saw it. Probably shouldn't have seen it in the theater because it's crazy. And it totally blew my mind, and all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I really need to start paying more attention to filmmaking and like what goes into making a film. And I'm bleached out again because of this stupid camera. It inspired me to want to really take filmmaking seriously. And his follow-up movie after Hardware was called Dust Devil, and he got royally screwed while making this one. It was with, I do believe it was the Weinsteins, and he gave them, Stanley gave them his cut of the movie. They didn't like it. They went back and recut the whole thing without his permission and released like this butchered 80-minute version of the movie that kind of really didn't make sense. It's just a bunch of random visuals. It looks like a music video most of the time. And this is the final cut. This is the final version of the movie. And how many versions of this movie are in this set? So we've got the Dust Devil work print, the Dust Devil final cut, and there's also a shitload of Richard Stanley's short films that he made in between Hardware and Dust Devil and before Hardware. And it's a movie that takes place in South Africa. There's like this guy's like a supernatural serial killer. He's like stealing people's souls. And he meets this one woman who he wants to get her soul, but she ends up being like his match, and it's really interesting, and it's like it's got this really creepy vibe to it, and I don't think it's nearly as good as Hardware was, but it's pretty cool on its own, and it's just weird. It's cool being able to go back and watch the different cuts of the movie to see where like all these different choices were made and what got cut. Because I remember seeing the original, like the Weinstein cut when I rented it back in the day from my local video store, and I did not think it was good. That is actually a really good movie. This is actually a super hard to find DVD. I knew that it was coming out on a specific day, so I ran over to my local Best Buy, and I actually got the only copy that they had, and I never saw it again after that day. It was like it disappeared from the shelves completely, so that's actually kind of a rare thing. Next up is this is my brother's movie. My brother, the filmmaker in Hollywood. This is the one feature film he's ever made. He made it here in Chicago. I was actually an executive producer on this. I gave him $2,500 to help make it. And I was also in one scene that got cut. I was just an extra. I did some of the effects work, some of the gore effects in it. And I was also a location manager because he ended up shooting at the place where I used to work. And it's called Feral Darkness. It's a drama about a soldier that was in Iraqi freedom and comes back. And he's got like PTSD, and his girlfriend's still waiting for him, and he treats her like absolute dog shit. And it's all about him coming to terms with like his past before he went off to war. I'm not sure if this actually has a Blu-ray version, but I'll have to actually look into it. But it's the original Fist of the North Star animated film. This is one of the first anime films I ever saw back in the early 90s. It was like Akira. It was Fist of the North Star, and it was the professional Go-Go 13. And I'd been reading the manga of Fist of the North Star for the longest time. And I was really familiar with the storyline and everything about it. So once I found out there was like a film version of it, I was like, yes, need this in my life. And my friend Charlie and I watched it. I think he actually bought a copy of it on VHS, brought it over to my house, and we ended up watching it. And it blew my mind. It's got martial arts. It's post-apocalyptic. There's tons of gore. I mean, people get punched in the stomach and their head explodes type of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a little long. There's a lot of characters to keep track of, but it's really fantastic. There's been video games based on this. It's crazy. I absolutely love it. I will not get rid of that until I find out that there is a Blu-ray version. Then we got the Friday the 13th, the complete series, the TV series. Yes, there was a Friday the 13th TV series. I used to watch this every Sunday night. It was on at like 10:30 at night on a Sunday. And this was going on in the late 80s and early 90s, I do believe. So I was still in high school, and because I had a TV with an antenna and this was playing on a UHF channel, I used to have to like watch it in my bedroom on real quiet volume-wise so my parents couldn't hear me watching it. I absolutely loved this show. A lot of like really good filmmakers, like people that actually have made films, like David Cronenberg directed episodes of this. There's a lot of stars that like were nobodies back then that were in this. Like Sarah Polley was in the first episode. I can't remember some of the other ones. But it basically has nothing to do with Jason Voorhees or anything like that. There's an antique shop. The guy who owned it was going bankrupt. So he made a deal with the devil that if he got money and he was able to keep the store alive, he would sell his soul to the devil in exchange. And he did. But there was a kink in the contract, and every item in the antique store ended up becoming cursed in some way. And everything that ended up selling, is starting to kill people out in the real world. So when the guy who owned the store dies, he leaves the store in his will to his niece and his nephew and to a friend of his from back in the day that was kind of like he's kind of like Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And once they find out what's going on with all these antiques, they end up, each episode is them going after a specific antique. And you find out what like the curse that it has built into it is, and how it's killing people and hurting people and whatever. It's really cool. First two seasons are great. Third season kind of like goes off the rails because the main guy, one of the main characters, the actors, he quit, and kind of the person they bring in to replace him kind of sucks. But it's a fantastic show. I mean, Freddy's Nightmares has nothing on this as far as I'm concerned. I like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies more than the Friday the 13th movies, but I like the Friday the 13th show more than the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show. It's a fantastic show, and this is dirt cheap. You can get this for like $15, and it's just massive, absolutely massive. What's up, bruh? How's it going? What's up, Barrett on Mars? Welcome. It is great. It's dirt cheap. I got this thing off of Amazon for, I think, $15. It's pretty fantastic. It's still, some of the effects are kind of dated, but, I mean, it still holds up as far as I'm concerned, because I'm just all about the storylines, and the storylines are good. The acting's kind of, but, you know. And I was talking about, when I was talking about Demon Hunters, Dead Camper Lake, about the Dead Gentleman Productions, and they made a movie called The Gamers, which is basically a bunch of people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you're actually seeing their characters going on the adventure. This is the first one. I think there's two other... Well, I've definitely seen the second one. The second one's called Darkness Rising, which is absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend you check out that. There's a Blu-ray copy of it out there. I need to track it down and get it, put that in my collection. But this is the first one. It's like a trial run for what ended up becoming Darkness Rising. But this one's decent. Second one's way better. And then it became so popular, at least Darkness Rising became so popular, that the Dead Gentleman people actually took the show on the road and actually was doing like live performances of like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Like people in the audience would tell them what's going on in the adventure and they'd have to act it out on stage. This is actually, I think, recorded at a Gen Con. I just was not at that specific Gen Con, but I did buy this at Gen Con. Oh shit, everybody's showing up, yay! Still need that Friday series set. Drunk Dude Mosley, you need it. You need it, man! Absolutely. My favorite musical genre is industrial, like Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that, Ministry. So a long time ago, I bought a VHS copy of this like collection of industrial music videos called Gothic Industrial Madness. And eventually, when I got rid of all my VHS tapes, I got rid of it. And then I ended up finding out that there was like a DVD version of it too, so I picked it up. It has music videos from, trust me, you're not going to know half these bands. Eiserstein, New Botan, Psychic TV, Pigface, Electric Hellfire Club, Spawn Ranch, ChemLab, Raised in Black, which was one of my favorite bands from back in the day, Killing Joke, Cubinate, goddamn Cubinate. If you love industrial music, listen to Cubinate. I wish they would make a comeback. I think they're trying. Birmingham 6, Godhead, Rosetta Stone, Leather Strip, whatever. It's a fantastic little collection of really craptastic music videos. There's a couple of here that are really cool, but most of the time it's just like shot with like a handy cam. But I wanted to get that for nostalgic purposes. Absolutely had to get this. Why is this not on Blu-ray? The first movie I think is on Blu-ray, but this is not. And we're talking the Guyver 2. I rented the first Guyver. Well, the Guyver anime was one of the first animes I ever saw. Like I was talking about Akira and Fist of the North Star and Gogol 13. But like when it came to like the TV shows, the first one I think I ever saw was the Guyver, and I thought it was freaking amazing. It's like a Japanese superhero story. And then like right after I started watching it, the live action movie with Mark Hamill came out, and I rented it thinking it was going to be the best thing ever, and I couldn't stand it. I could not stand the first Guyver movie at all. I thought it was just this amateur hour wannabe Power Ranger bullshit. So I didn't think twice about it. And then like I went to a Blockbuster with my parents, and I saw Guyver 2 sitting on the shelf, and I was like, why did that need to be made? But I rented it because I'm dumb, and it turned out to be freaking fantastic. This still feels Power Ranger-esque, but this one's rated R. The other one was PG-13. This one has so much freaking violence, it feels like the anime come to life. This is before Mortal Kombat. This came out in 93, I want to say. Yeah, I think so, 93 or 94. And, like, this started to get my attention with the martial arts. I was like, the fight scenes in this movie at the time were pretty freaking fantastic, and then Mortal Kombat, like, took it to the next level. It's really long for a direct-to-video movie. This is over 2 hours, I do believe. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because I had zero expectations, then I watched it. The guy who is the voice of Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid plays the character who turns into the Guyver in this. It's fantastic. Watch it many, many times. I absolutely love it. It's got fantastic fight scenes. I think they still hold up. This I have on my shelf just because it doesn't fit anywhere else. But I got the Halo 3 Essentials collection. This came with my Legendary Edition of Halo 3 that I bought that came with the big Master Chief mask. Or helmet, sorry. So it's got like a DVD of like behind-the-scenes stuff. I think both of them are just behind-the-scenes stuff from the making of Halo 3. So I put that in with my regular stuff because I didn't want to keep it with the helmet. Do you guys remember that BMW took a little dabble in the filmmaking area back in the mid-noughts? They did this thing called The Hire. It was the first time I had ever seen Clive Owen in anything. Basically what they did was to basically advertise the release of a new car of theirs. They hired a bunch of like Hollywood directors to make little short films featuring their car, and they released them online. And this is a series of 8 short films, and they are one is by John Woo, one's by Joe Carnahan, one's by Tony Scott, one's by John Frankenheimer, one's by Ang Lee, one's by Wong Kar-wai, one's by Guy Ritchie, and one's by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. They're freaking insanity. Especially the one that's by Tony Scott, where Gary Oldman plays the devil, and he's in a car race in Vegas to collect Clive Owen's soul. It is insanity. Absolutely fantastic. Yes, he did write X-Men 1 and 2. Yep. David Hayter. Yep. I almost met him at one point, and it was pretty awesome. But yeah, David Hayter used to be an actor before he became a writer, and yeah, Guyver 2 was the first time I think I ever saw him. But yeah, The Hire, I had ordered this off the BMW website. I downloaded the short films individually, and I used to watch them all the time because I was like, now that's a short film right there. That's when you got some money behind you, that's what they look like. So, absolutely had to get a physical copy of that. I wish they would remaster them and put them on a Blu-ray of some sort because they're just really, really cool. The Hire, yeah, it is absolutely fantastic. I still watch it. This is another movie that my brother made in Hollywood. He only has made like a handful of like short films and stuff like that, and one of them is this one called I Want Him Dead. It's about a Hollywood actor who dumps his girlfriend, cheats on her, and it's all about her trying to like kill him for dumping her. And it's pretty funny. You're not going to be able to find this anywhere. I got a copy directly from him. I think he was just giving them out to like friends and family and all that. So, yep, the voice of Solid Snake. Yep. And I was talking about industrial music. Well, my favorite industrial band still is, to this day, is KMFDM. KMFDM is a drug against war, y'all. So I have all these KMFDM like concert videos. This is the World War III tour from 2003. Has my favorite... Is this the one that has it in there? It has Juke Joint Jezebel on it, but this isn't the one I'm talking about. Is it this one? Yeah. This is the KMFDM featuring Pig Sturm und Drang tour from 2002. This is when they had Raymond Watts, who used to be in the band occasionally back in the 90s and sometimes in the 2000s. My favorite song of KMFDM's is Ultra, which got used in the Street Fighter II animated movie during the fight scene with Chun-Li and Vega. That's my favorite song of all time, by my favorite band of all time. So that's another concert video or video of theirs. And then this one is called Beat by Beat by Beat, and it's all their music videos and some tour footage. And their music videos are really, really cool. It's like all computer animation of like their album covers and stuff. It's really rad. So there's that. I had to get those. I got those off their website. This has never been released, I don't think, on DVD or Blu-ray or anything other than like Laserdisc, I think was the last time it got released anywhere. And I ended up buying this off of eBay for like $2. It's actually like a burned copy of the movie from the widescreen Laserdisc, and we're talking about The Keep. It's a horror movie by Michael Mann that came out in the early 80s. One of the first times I ever saw Ian McKellen in a movie. Gabriel Byrne's in it also. Jurgen Prochnow. Scott Glenn. Yeah, Jurgen Prochnow's in this also. Alberta Watson, who was in Hackers. And it's like the book that this is based on, the villain is a vampire. It's about a bunch of Nazis who come to, I think, Hungary and take over this castle. And it turns out the castle is like owned by a vampire, and the vampire starts taking out all the Nazis. In the movie, they decided to make it like this ancient evil being that kind of needs to like suck the life force out of people and all that. It's absolutely crazy. It's just really interesting to watch. Plot-wise, it's not the greatest, but like if you want to just turn the volume off on a movie and watch something that looks beautiful, this is the movie to do that with, even though the soundtrack by Tangerine Dream is pretty awesome too. But it's a very creepy, atmospheric movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's really hard to find, though, which is why I ended up having to buy like a bootleg of it. I remember watching this show that used to be on Nickelodeon back in the day when Nickelodeon first started. They had a show that was hosted by Leonard Nimoy, where he would talk about like behind the scenes, like the making of movies that were going to be in theaters. And to see them talking about the making of this movie on Nickelodeon, which is a kids channel, blew my freaking mind. And that was why I wanted to watch it like immediately. The monster does look like Lord Zed from Power Rangers, just without the headdress. He's just like this weird muscle suit that has glowing eyes and walks around going like, I'm going to suck out your energy. You can kind of see it on the back. Right there. But it's basically just a guy in like a rubber muscle suit. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I've seen KMFDM live twice. Lord Zed. Yeah, I've seen KMFDM live twice in Chicago at the Blues, what's it called? House of Blues. They put on a really great show. And they seem like they're super nice, too. Like, they have that on-stage persona thing, but when you see them outside of that, they're, like, really nice and personable. I really would just love to just drink a beer with them and hang out with them for a day. I'm a huge fan of this show. I understand why a lot of people do not like it, because it is weird and strange and bizarre, but I think that's why I like it so much, because it's so completely different from everything else, especially that was on TV at the time that this came out. I'm talking about this TV show called Lex. I used to watch this on the Sci-Fi Channel. It started off as 4 Showtime movies, which ended up serving as the first season of the show. And then Sci-Fi Channel bought it and started turning it into like a regular old TV show that I'm surprised they actually did show, because there's so much sex going on in these shows. God damn. This is the complete first and second season. So it has all 4 of the original Showtime movies and the first season of the second season, which is the first real season of the show. I can't talk, people. Yeah, it is one of my favorite shows of all time because it is so batshit crazy. I mean, who are the main characters? Okay? You've got a dead guy who used to be an assassin who needs to constantly be frozen, otherwise he's going to die. You've got a hooker, or a woman who's meant to be a hooker. She used to be like this huge overweight woman. She got turned into a space hooker. You've got a disembodied robot head who is in love with said hooker and does nothing but make poetry about her. And you have this cowardly guy who pilots around the Lex ship, which is this giant bug that's always hungry. It is just strange for the sake of being strange, but that's why I like it, because it was trying not to be Star Trek. Because this was out when like Deep Space Nine and Voyager was going on, and it was trying its hardest to just avoid the tropes of those shows and just do something completely different. And I really enjoyed it for that. I was just like, I did not know what to expect with each episode. Some episodes are stupid and dumb as shit. But for the most part, I was just like, these guys have balls for doing this. And you know what? It had an audience because it lasted for 4 seasons. So, there's that. Absolutely love it. I need to find the other 2 seasons of that. Dieter Laser, yep, from Human Centipede, yep, as Mantis. Was it Lord Mantis or whatever it was from the second season? Goddamn. That Brunin G chant, shit, yeah. Oh, way, yo, these nuts! I'm glad that people weren't booing me for having this. Oh, you guys make my heart so proud. I'm so happy right now. This is probably the least liked, other than Dune, David Lynch movie out there. This is my favorite David Lynch movie right here. Lost Highway. This I don't think has ever been released on Blu-ray. I think it was like released super late on DVD. Like Blu-ray was already a thing when this came out, and it got a real quiet release. I saw this in the theater twice. I went with one of my friends, and it completely blew our minds because we didn't know what to expect, because David Lynch, he's weird and eclectic and does strange things. Sometimes he does mainstream stuff, sometimes he decides to do weird stuff. This is one of the weird ones, and it just blew my mind a little bit. This is another one that made me go I need to start making movies. And I loved it so much, I talked a bunch of other people into going to see it with me the following week. They didn't like it so much, so that was when I started to realize this is like an either you love it or hate it type of situation. But I love it. It's just like this weird dream situation where, like, Bill Pullman thinks his wife is cheating on him. He keeps getting mysterious phone calls from this guy that looks like the devil. And then one day he turns back into like his younger self, and his wife is there too, but it's not really his wife. It's just bizarre. But I absolutely love David Lynch, and I love, like I said, Lost Highway. Every time I watch it, I find some new detail that I have missed, or some line of dialogue that didn't really make sense at first, but now it's like, oh, wait a minute. I always discover new things every time I see it. So I absolutely love that one. It's just so strange. You guys see this Mortal Kombat thing behind me? I mean, I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. Love the games, love the movies. I have Mortal Kombat Conquest on DVD, the complete first season. The never went any further past season 1, which is a damn shame because it ends on such a rad-ass cliffhanger that would have, changed everything in Mortal Kombat world. But, yeah, this lasted for a whole season alongside with a Crow TV show that had Mark Dacascos in it. But your main character is Kung Lao. It takes place, 1,000 years before the first movie. And like he has a couple of friends. One is like an ex-guard, and one is like a pickpocket. It's Kristanna Loken from Terminator 3, who played the Terminatrix. And they come across every single character from the Mortal Kombat universe at some point in here. A couple of new ones too. Shang Tsung's one of the main characters in it. The guy that plays Shao Kahn also plays Raiden. It's actually a pretty fun show. It's really cheap and cheesy. It is a little Power Ranger-y. It reeks of just no budget, but it's fun and it's more Mortal Kombat, and I can't help but enjoy it. Yep, all TV shows I used to air in the 90s. I absolutely love it. Like, I'm really nostalgic about the 90s, dude. Then there's My Science Project. I refuse to get rid of this until a Blu-ray comes out. This is another Disney movie that Disney refuses to admit exists. I don't even think this is on Disney Plus. A bunch of like a kid who's like really into cars has a science project due for class in high school, and he breaks into an old Air Force base and finds an alien spaceship engine and brings it back, and it turns out that it can like open rifts in space and time and stuff like that. And he turns his high school into like a museum of like of time, like future and past. Like dinosaurs are running around, and there's an alien bar and stuff like that. And Dennis Hopper's in here acting like a freaking hippie again. I think this was like his big comeback movie too. But it's really fun. I've always loved this movie. It has some of the best lines ever. Fisher Stevens is in it. He plays this like wannabe Italian guy, and like everything that comes out of his mouth is like gold. He has a car that flips people off. I think my favorite line in this movie is to stop the alien engine from suckling electricity and energy to power it. The main characters have to destroy a power tower, electricity tower. And they get arrested for it. And when Fisher Stevens' character is getting arrested, this big, like, manly woman is standing next to him she's a police officer, and he's still wearing his sunglasses while he's getting his mugshot taken. And she goes, "Tell me, Slick, why do you wear your sunglasses at night?" And he goes, "Because when you're cool, the sun shines on you 24 hours a day." And then she goes, "Yeah!" And she, like, smacks him around, and he goes, "Chill out, Butch, and get a shave." It cracks me the fuck up. I absolutely love that movie. It is so much fun. We actually watched this in the first season of my podcast, the Movie Starting Podcast. My friend Jason and I and my friend Jeremiah all watched it together and did a commentary track for it. It is a fun movie. Here's one that I saw in the theater back in the 80s, The Philadelphia Experiment. John Carpenter actually wrote this. I think he had the intention of directing it, and then he bailed, I think, to make Christine, maybe? Maybe Starman? I can't remember. But it's a time travel movie. That naval experiment where they're trying to like jam radar. It actually sends like this naval vessel like into this like limbo realm that like 40 years or 50 years later it's like destroying a small town. And it's really bizarre, but it's kind of cool. Has some interesting special effects, decent music. Michael Pere's in it. I used to have a big crush on Nancy Allen back in the day, but that's a really cool one. Searches Disney Plus. I don't think My Science Project is on Disney Plus. Yeah, my boy rated Area 51 before it was cool. No shit. And the funny thing is, the guy who plays the lead in this is actually a director now. John Stockwell. He directed that movie with Kate Boswell where they go surfing or whatever. I can't remember the name of it. But when I was talking about Fist of the North Star in the anime, also I was talking about Professional Go-Go 13. This was one of the first movies I ever saw anime-wise. And this is the same Go-Go 13 that's had Nintendo games. Duke Togo. Yeah, it's like a espionage, like thriller type thing. There's some sex going on. It has one of the worst lines in the history of anime where Duke has like this handler girl. I can't remember if she's supposed to be like his handler or like his weapons expert. But I guess she's kind of like Moneypenny, and she's always wanted to bang him. And at this one point, she kind of has him cornered, and she goes, "Oh, Duke, since he's an assassin, he's a sniper." She goes, "Oh, Duke, I've always wanted you to pull my trigger so softly and lovingly." I went like, "Who talks like that?" Buck Fitty. Go. Yeah, this is absolutely a fantastic anime. It's really well animated, and it gives you more insight into the games, I would say. There's still a third Go-Go 13 game out there for the Nintendo. We never got over here. I need to buy a repro of that. I also have actually from China, copy of Shaolin Soccer. What's this guy's name? Jesus, I can never remember this guy's name. Well, Shaolin Soccer ended up getting bought by the Weinsteins and released over here in the U.S., and they edited the shit out of it, and they dubbed it horribly, and I saw that in the theater, and I was like, no. So I immediately tracked down this Chinese DVD of it, and it is able to be watched in the U.S. It's like region-free. And it's so much better. Stephen Chow. Blue Crush. Yes, Blue Crush is that movie. Yeah, Stephen Chow made this. That was, I think, the first movie he ever made. And it's like a kung fu soccer movie. And it's funny and fantastic. That guy that plays the goalie who thinks he's Bruce Lee, that shit cracks me up. So I absolutely had to own that. Blue Crush. I haven't seen it since I saw it on when it first got released on home video. But he's directed a bunch of other stuff too. I can't remember. Like, just look up John Stockwell on IMDb. He was also in Christine. Here's another Disney movie that they wish they could just sweep under the rug. But my dad used to work for Kraft, and they'd get perks every once in a while. And one of them was advance tickets to see a screening of this. But my dad didn't take us because he thought it would scar my brother and I emotionally. So we never did go see it. But we did see it when it came to home video, and that is Something Wicked This Way Comes. This is based on was it Ray Bradbury? Yeah, Ray Bradbury short story. And it's a legit horror movie that Disney made. I mean, it even says at the top here, Walt Disney's Something Wicked This Way Comes. There was like that period that I used to call like the dark Disney years, where I think it was like from 79 to when they made this. So you had Watcher in the Woods, you had Black Hole, you had this, you had Tron. It was like they were trying to do like these different types of movies to bring audiences in to say we're not all kids. We don't make nothing. We make more than just kids movies. It didn't work. Like none of them made money. But I always loved this movie. It's a legit horror movie that Disney made. It's like about a satanic circus that comes to town. I think it's in the 40s or something like that, and they start like absorbing the people from the town, making them part of the troupe. I think they're like stealing their souls. And Jonathan Pryce is in here. He plays the villain, and he is freaking creeptastic in this movie. He is fantastic. You need to check this out if you haven't seen it before. It is one of the coolest movies I remember seeing, like horror-wise, when I was a little kid, next to like Poltergeist. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I do not think I've seen it show up on Disney Plus. Like, I'm surprised they have the Black Hole. They have the Rocketeer, which is great, but they have the Black Hole, which, like I said, just randomly popped up in my feed on Disney Plus one day. It's like, you might like this. I was like, what? And yeah, but none of the other ones are there. Yeah, also, My Science Project is part of that dark Disney years. Here's an animated movie. If any of you know what this is, like, we're officially brothers from now on. Star Chaser, The Legend of Orion. I saw this in a theater in 3D. It was originally released in 3D. And it is a complete and total ripoff of Star Wars, but holy shit is it freaking amazing. I still love this movie to this day. I think it still completely holds up. It steals every bit. Yeah, they do have Return to Oz. That's another one. I did watch Return to Oz on Disney+. That's another one of the dark Disney movies. It still holds up. I watched it like 2 weekends ago, and I think it's still great. But Star Chaser. Yeah, you have a kid who is like enslaved by these robots in these mines. They're forced to worship this like false god guy named Zygon. And one day while mining, he finds the hilt of a sword. It's like a lightsaber almost, because it glows when the blade shows up. And like a voice comes from it, kind of like Obi-Wan, and says, hey, this is not where you're supposed to be. There's a world above. You need to get there. And that's exactly what he does. He finds his way to the surface and has this big space adventure and overthrows the government that's oppressing his people and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy. It's really, really fun. It has really cool music, actually. And the animation is, like, adult as shit. I mean, there's, like, a robot that literally gets its ass tapped. It's funny. They curse in it. There's violence. There's, like, people getting blown in half and stuff, and it is absolute nuts. I highly recommend checking this out. It's hard to find on DVD. I ended up finding this randomly on my birthday. I went to the DMV to renew my license, and I went to the Best Buy next door to waste some time afterwards, and I found this sitting there. I was like... and I didn't see it again. But there's also a Blu-ray edition out there that you can buy right now if you really want to. I don't recommend it because the sound mix is terrible, and there's like sounds missing from it. It's terrible, terrible. If you can find the DVD edition, that's the way to go. That's why spoiler alert, I do have the Blu-ray, but I'm not getting rid of the DVD because the DVD is the better version. Okay. Sadly, it is not. What are you talking about, Cabot? Oh, Star Chaser? No, it is not, but do they even have it to rent? Because I would say rent it. It's fantastic. The guy who plays Carter's father on Stargate SG-1 plays the guy that's like Han Solo in the movie. So, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I hate the special editions of the original trilogy, and I hate them. And I was like, I'm never going to buy a special edition version of any of the original trilogy ever until this box set came out. And this is like a steel box or steel case version. And the reason I bought this, yes, it has the special editions. Like, I think this is probably the third revision that George Lucas made in this one. A third attempt to make Han dodge that bullet by Greedo a little bit. The reason I own these is because, as an extra, are the untouched versions of the original trilogy. I'm talking in A New Hope. It's still just called Star Wars. There is, in the opening title scroll, there is no Episode 4, A New Hope. That's not there. This is when it was just known as Star Wars. The only issue is that the only thing he didn't do, or Lucas didn't do, was make them compatible with like the anamorphic format. So if you watch this on a widescreen TV, it's going to be like reverse letterboxed, where it's like in the middle of your screen and letterboxed. So you have to like expand it to fit your screen. That's the only issue I have with it. This is the only version of Star Wars, the original trilogy, I'm ever going to own until Disney gets off their ass and releases HD versions of the untouched trilogy. So that's the only reason I own this box set. But I'm glad that I do. Put it over here. Also have a copy of The Warriors on DVD because the only version that's available on Blu-ray is that director's cut, which is terrible. It ruins the movie as far as I'm concerned. So this is my preferred version of the film. So until I get that original cut, the theatrical cut on Blu-ray, I will own this one instead. But yeah, that whole comic book thing, it ruins the appearance of the Baseball Furies. Yeah, Pico, come on and play it. I love this movie. I love the video game. I didn't see this movie actually until probably 2002. I think that was the first time I ever saw it. A friend of mine had been talking about it for like months and months and months. And I was like, finally, let's just watch this freaking thing. And we did, and I was like, okay, that was cool. I absolutely love it. So it became like an instant favorite of mine from that point on. Refuse to own that director's cut. It sucks. We're just talking about Something Wicked This Way Comes and the Dark Disney thing. Here's the first movie in that series, and that is like The Watcher in the Woods. I'm currently reading the novel of this, the novel that this is based on. It's like a science fiction horror movie about a girl and her family who move into like this house. The woman who owns the house owns like a smaller little house next to the main one where they're living, and her daughter had disappeared. Like, was it 50 years ago or something like that? And the lead girl, Jan, feels that there's something like creeping on her and her sister from the woods, and it's like this alien presence. And it turns into this whole like mystery thing, like whatever happened to Karen 50 years ago, and what's really going on? What is this thing that's watching us and seems to randomly possess Jan's little sister every once in a while? It's a really good movie. I remember when my parents rented this for us on VHS way back in the day. I liked it so much, I made my parents rewatch it twice more with me. Like, I thought it was just that good. We watched it 3 times in a row, like in one night. So I absolutely recommend this one. And the thing is, this movie was also one of those really troubled movies that like went through all these pre-production problems or post-production problems. Like the ending didn't sit well with test audiences, so they had to reshoot the ending like 3 or 4 different times. And all of those endings are on here as an extra, and they are crazy. They are absolutely nuts. This is another one that I don't think is on Disney Plus, so you need to check this one out. It's like the first of that dark Disney period I was talking about. It's fantastic. It has Betty Davis is in it. It was like one of the last movies that she did, as far as I remember. Yeah, Betty Davis is in it. Lynn Holly Johnson, who was in For Your Eyes Only, plays Jan in it. It's a really fun movie. I really, really enjoy it. My brother, and me to an extent, used to work for this Chicago-based like indie film company called You Press Play. They had a website. My brother used to make like short films from them and stuff. So I have like these You Press Play compilations of all the movies or the short films that they had made over the years. A couple of my brothers are on these too. And, okay, now we're going to talk about some porn. It's also missing Disney Plus. Like I said, the good stuff is not there. So, I have a story about this one. So, it's called Yuratsuka Doji. It's a hentai porn. Okay, so, I'm not into this kind of stuff at all. Like, ever. I've seen maybe 2 of them in my life, and this is the only one that I kind of enjoy because I think the story's actually not too bad when there isn't tentacle wieners flapping around and shit, shooting laser beams. So, when anime first started to get big in the US in the early 90s, my friend Charlie and I, Epic Dye Studio, he might show up here. I'm calling all hentai qualifies as porn. Yeah. So, well, we went to this comic book shop where we were getting our anime VHS tapes from. We went there one day, and this Yuratsuka Doji movie was sitting there. And across the front, it said, absolutely not for children, rated NC-17. So my friend Charlie goes, ooh, let's get it, because, we're 17 now. We can watch this, and, people can't give a shit for it. So he bought a copy of it, and we went back to his place to watch it. He lived with his dad and his grandmother. So we popped this thing into the VHS player in the living room, and we watched this thing with his grandmother sitting behind us on the couch the whole time. We did not know that there was going to be, like, laser spooge shooting tentacle wieners and, women with badges on their back and stuff like that. It was, we were not prepared for this, and we did not know what the hell was going on. But, like I said, the story was pretty cool, so we kept watching it. His grandma said absolutely nothing the whole movie. We were like, we're watching a porn with your grandmother. Why is she not freaking out? Well, this is where it goes. Okay, so the movie ends. Charlie takes the tape out, puts it back in its sleeve, takes it upstairs, and hides it because he's afraid his grandma's going to tell his dad that he bought an animated porno movie. So his dad comes home from work. We go into the kitchen, and his grandma went and made dinner. We're sitting down to dinner. We're all sitting around eating. I'm drinking this glass of milk, and Chuck's dad happens to look over at his grandma, and she's not touching her food. And he goes, hey, Gram, what's going on? Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? He goes, why aren't you touching your food? And she looks him dead in the eye and goes, you wouldn't need anything either if you've seen the things I've seen. And, I choked on my milk. It shot out my nose. I was dying. I was, almost ready to, fall on the floor. And I was also choking at the same time. So, oh, God. It was so funny. And what do you do after that once you've watched one hentai? You go and you rent part 2. There's 4 movies in this series. So Charlie went and bought part 2. And we went and... I think this has both movies on it, the first 2 at least on it. It has the director's cut, which actually makes more sense story-wise than the one that we saw back in the day. But, so when it comes to the second movie, let's not watch it at Chuck's house because his Gram's, gonna freak out again. So let's watch it at my house. My mom's home. We'll watch it in the basement. She never comes into the basement, ever. So we'll be okay. So we're watching the movie, the second one, and it's more of the same. Got this Nazi death rape machine thing going on, and we're like, okay, that's special. So we're watching it, and there's this, sex scene happening between 2 demons. The male demon has, a 3-pronged wiener, and there's a shot inside the woman's, of the wiener pounding away. And that's just when my mother decides it's time to do laundry. And she walks downstairs, and she looks at the screen and sees this. And, kind of goes, what are you watching? And I just, instantly, I go, children's programming. And she goes, okay. And goes back and does the laundry. Because she's like, cartoon. It's just some weird thing I'm looking at. So, oh my God. We're cursed with watching these movies. We had to, go to, some hotel, we're having an affair or something like that to watch these without people barging in on us and shit. So, I never went anywhere past the second movie. Like I said, I think the second movie is on here. But honestly, I haven't... I bought this because of the memory of the grandma thing. Cracking me the fuck up. But I actually haven't watched it since I bought the DVD because I don't know if I could actually sit there and stomach it. It was an interesting time to be alive. And then the final DVD that I have is the complete series of the War of the Worlds TV show. I used to watch this every week, religiously. Channel 50 in my state, it was a UHF channel. It ended up becoming UPN out here. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, they used to have this block that would happen starting at noon. They would play The Adventures of Superboy, Then they would play this TV show that had the guy from Sliders who was in Stand By Me. He had a TV show where he was like a teenage superhero. They would play that, and then they'd play an episode of War of the Worlds. And my brother and I used to watch this show religiously. We absolutely loved the original War of the Worlds movie that came out in the 50s. And this is a sequel series to that. And Jerry O'Connell, that's him. Yeah, couldn't remember his name for some reason. I'm usually pretty good with names, but that just brain farted. But yeah, it's a fantastic show. It's very dated now. Very, very dated. Especially when you see what the computers they're using look like. But it's a fun show. It took me a little while to get through it again, watching the DVD set, because of the 2 seasons they made. The first season is pretty straightforward. It's just basically military operations trying to stop the aliens from taking over the world again. And then in the second season, for some reason, they decided it was a good idea to shake the whole thing up, kill off some of the main characters, and have it be this post-apocalyptic environment now, and like the aliens have taken over, and there's like a new version of the aliens that are running around. It's just like, no. I want to see Sliders again. But this is a huge nostalgia bomb for me. I absolutely loved this show, and when I saw it at Walmart, and it was like $10. I was like, you're coming home with me. And I immediately watched like 10 episodes in a row. The pilot episode where you actually see the spaceships from the original War of the Worlds movie show up again, like, it still gives me goosebumps watching it. I used to watch that pilot episode. I had it recorded onto a VHS tape. I used to watch that pilot episode like over and over again back in the day. All right, so now we're moving on to the BluRays. At Wally World as well. Yep, every once in a while I find some gems at Walmart, but, you know, there's not really one around here by me anymore, so. War of the Worlds, Doctor Who, and Red Dwarf. I might be talking about some Red Dwarf later. Let me get a little drink first. So now we're talking about the Blu-ray TV shows. Like I said, I keep my TV shows on Blu-ray separate from everything else because the boxes they come in are so randomly sized that, you know, they just take up too much space, so I have them in their own area. And let's start off with the complete series of Farscape. I used to watch this on Sci-Fi Channel all the time, even though I kind of like lost interest in the third season. Never really saw any of the third, nor much of the third, never saw any of the fourth. But I ended up watching the movie that they made, the Peacekeeper Wars, and didn't know what the fuck was going on. But so I had bought the DVD box set of every episode also way earlier in the mid-2000s. Ended up catching up with everything then, so now I knew what was going on. And then, naturally, got to get the box set of the Blu-ray because, it's in higher definition. Not really. It still kind of looks DVD-esque. But it's a really fun show that's kind of like Buck Rogers, guy that's like an astronaut, gets thrown into a distant part of the galaxy, ends up becoming part of like this crew of outcast aliens on this living ship. And it's almost Lex-like, except doesn't have all the sex and well, there's sex in it, but doesn't have like all the crazy. It's a combination of Lex and Star Trek. It's like a good mix of the two. It's got some of the craziness of Lex in it and some of the standard tropey stuff that you would see in Star Trek. And I think the thing I like the most about it is the cast. The cast is fantastic. Every one of the characters is likable in their own way. They do a fantastic job. Claudia Black is still freaking hot as hell. Oh my god. But it's a great show. Jim Henson's Creature Shop did a lot of most of the physical effects for it. It's great. Yeah, Farscape is fantastic. I've watched through that entire series at least 4 times. Speaking of another one, there's Firefly. I absolutely love this show, even though I could not stand it when it first premiered, because they showed these episodes out of order on Fox, and that's the reason why I couldn't stand it. Yeah, SG-1. You have no idea the smile that got put on my face when these two people on the front here actually showed up in Stargate SG-1 for the last season. I was over the moon. More Claudia Black in my life is never a bad thing. But anyway, they showed the second episode of Firefly as the first, and by then you're supposed to kind of know the characters already and what the deal is with all of them, and you don't, so it made no sense to me. So I was like, I watched that episode and I said, F you, Joss Whedon, you suck now. Never watched it again. And then once it came out on home video, I started reading reviews of it, and they're like, oh, if you gave it a chance before, give it another chance now, because now you can actually watch it in its intended order, and when you can, and you see the progression of the characters and the way they were supposed to be done, instead of being shown out of order like that everything about it just works. And I was like, fine. So I bought the DVD box set and instantly fell in love with it. The pilot episode alone, I was like, okay, you got me. And then I watched the episode that served as the pilot when it was broadcast, and I was like, see, now this is good, because now I know what's going on with these characters. It makes sense now. Okay. It's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Even though it's only like a half of a season, it's still fantastic. But we got a nice wrap-up with Serenity, so I can't really complain. One of the few times that we actually got a wrap-up to a canceled show. I also have the first season of Grimm. I used to watch this a lot, like especially the first season when it was first being broadcast, and I really enjoyed it. It was like this was going on at the same time as Once Upon a Time, and my girlfriend at the time liked Once Upon a Time, and I was the guy who liked Grimm. You know, she wouldn't watch this because she didn't think it was very interesting. I didn't like Once Upon a Time because of the Disney-ness of it. So I need to get the other seasons. I haven't seen anything past season 1, but I found this at Half Price Books for like $5. And I was like, for $5, who gives a crap? And I rewatched a few episodes, I want to say 2 months ago, and I was like, okay, it's still pretty cool. I like it. Anyway, we're going to start putting these stuff. Run out of space. God damn. I haven't opened this, but I have seen this. I watched it when it was being broadcast. But the first season of Hannibal, I also got this at Half Price Books for like $5, but it was still sealed, so I was like, I'll take it. Great show based on the characters from those Thomas Harris novels. It's fantastic, actually. It's really well made and gory. I could not understand how they got away with all the gore that this show had in it on television. And I think this lasted for 3 seasons, but once again, never saw anything past the first season. But the first season was pretty fantastic. I need to find the other 2 seasons of this. I think it is streaming on Netflix now. I have to catch up on it. I need to watch the other 2 seasons, because I know they end up doing things that lead up to Red Dragon or Manhunter, if you're old like me. So I need to see that immediately. Oh, I'm running out of space. God damn. Come here, Firefly. Come here, Farscape. You're going over here. Okay. Awesome. First season of the Justice League on Blu-ray. I absolutely love this show, and this ended up turning into Justice League Unlimited and went on for like another 2 seasons. Fantastic animated DC show. I am a huge fan of anything that DC does on television and in the realm of direct-to-video. Like those direct-to-video movies, for the most part, 90% of them are freaking amazing. So, yeah, absolutely had to have this. I found this at Half Price Books again for like, $5-6, so I picked it up. I need to get the other 2 seasons. I also have the 4... Hang on a second. So Showtime was doing this like horror anthology show called Masters of Horror. I think it was for 2 seasons. I have the 4 volumes from season 1. I ended up having to buy each of these individually, but it's like I said, it's an anthology show. You got episodes directed by John Carpenter, William Malone, who did the remake of House on Haunted Hill, Stuart Gordon, Lucky McGee, Dario Argento, John Landis, Toby Hooper, Larry Cohen, Don Coscarelli, which is pretty cool, Takeshi Miike, Joe Dante, John McNaughton, and Mick Garris, hack. Yeah, some of them are good, some of them are not. I really like the John Carpenter one. Was it Cigarette Burns? It's one of my favorite like little horror vignette stories. It's freaking amazing. I never watched season 2, though, so I can't comment on that. The Freaky Feral Chick? No, that's the one with the... Cigarette Burns is the one about the lost film that drives people crazy when they watch it. Mortal Kombat fan. Gotta have Mortal Kombat Legacy Season 1 and 2. This is the internet-based Mortal Kombat television show. It is kind of an anthology. Each episode is usually about a different character or set of characters from the games. In Season 1, they actually made like a short film, concept short film, that was called Mortal Kombat Rebirth, where like Reptile was a guy with like ichthyosis who was like eating people's heads and stuff, and Baraka was a doctor who was into like self-mutilation and installed these like knives in his like forearms and stuff, and had mutilated his face with like piercings and stuff. When that got picked up, they changed it. It ended up not being the same as the Rebirth thing, which was pretty cool, but at least Michael Jai White as Jax, and, what's her name from... shit. I can't remember her name. Jerry Ryan from Star Trek Voyager as Sonya carried over from that, which is pretty cool. And I think Ian Anthony Dale, who plays Scorpion, I think he was the same guy who played Scorpion in that too. But you got shorts, you got movies or little videos about, Sonya and Jax, and them meeting Kano. You got one about Raiden, which I think is really interesting, where Raiden comes down for the tournament and ends up like landing accidentally like in the yard of a mental institution, and he gets like drugged up and kept in a mental institution. He's trying to tell everybody like, look, I'm the Thunder God, and they're like, yeah, sure. It's really cool. There's one about Katana and Melina. There's one about Johnny Cage. There's a couple about Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and there's one about Cyrax and Sector, which is freaking terrible. And then Season 2 actually is about the tournament and Liu Kang, and there's like this weird Liu Kang twist where he like turns into a bad guy, which is kind of weird. So you got Liu Kang, you got Johnny Rico from Starship Troopers. I can never remember his name. He plays Johnny Cage in this season. It's okay. I prefer the first season to this. This one is freaking huge. I got this on it for a discount on Amazon, and that's the reason I bought it. But holy crap, this thing is massive. And it is the first 10 seasons of Red vs. Blue. It's a machinima series based on Halo. I think they ended up using Halo 3 to remaster it. It's remastered from what was originally made with Halo 1. They remade every single episode, shot for shot, with Halo 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme as Johnny Cage, that would have been fantastic. But look at all of this. It's like the Hellraiser puzzle box unfolding in front of me. There are so many discs in here. 10 full seasons of this show. And I've watched all 10, and there's, I think, more now, too. So there's probably going to be some 20-season box set coming out, too, that's going to be twice as thick. But it started to lose its momentum, like, after Season 7, I want to say, maybe 6. And, like, they kind of became, like, a chore to watch. But the first few seasons are pretty awesome and funny. I really recommend it, but you can find them online for free. So it's not like it's really necessary to buy it. But, you know, I wanted to show my support, so I picked it up. I'm convinced the vehicle strike. No, my favorite line from Red vs. Blue is the Sarge, when they first get the Warthog, and they're trying to come up with a name for it, and the guy's like, well, I think it looks like a Warthog. It's got those tusks in the front. And the Sarge is like, no, Chupacabra. Or the one guy says, no, let's call it the Chupacabra. And Sarge is like, yeah, Chupa thingy. It's got a ring to it. That cracks me up. So we were talking about Red Dwarf, weren't we? Well, I've got the season, what is this, season 8? No, season 9 of Red Dwarf. It's actually just like a mini-series that they made called Back to Earth, which is like ripping off Blade Runner. But it's a sci-fi sitcom from the UK that's extremely funny. Patrick Stewart has endorsed it. I was actually telling a coworker about this show last week, and the moment I said there's a race of cats that have evolved to be humans, but they're still cats. You know, they still act like cats. He's like, I need to see the show. Yeah, but this is what serves as the 9th season of the show. It's a miniseries. Season 10, Season 11, and Season 12. They're actually working on Season 13 and 14 right now. This show has been going on since the late 80s. And it had like a resurgence in popularity. Excuse me, my throat is going dry. Yeah, it had like a resurgence in popularity like 7, 8, 9 years ago or something. So they're still making them to this day, even though the actors are like really starting to show their age. Yeah, they've got 2 seasons in the works, and they're still talking about making a movie. We'll see how that works. But I've been a fan of Red Dwarf since mid-90s. A friend of mine introduced me to it. While the first 2 seasons are kind of rough, because they're really cheaply made, and some of the humor like went over my head because they're making references to like stuff from England or the UK that I just knew nothing about at the time. So I was kind of like, okay, it's funny, and yet it's not funny because I'm not understanding the humor. But now that I'm older and I watch it now, I'm like, okay, I get everything that they're talking about. But they've only released the first 8 seasons on Blu-ray in the UK. It's not, you need to have like an all-region Blu-ray player to get it, and I don't. So it's kind of off the table for me, unless I can find like a all-region Blu-ray player. I'm also a big fan of Spartacus. I only have the miniseries, The Gods of the Arena, the first series, Blood and Sand, and the second season, Vengeance. I still need the final season. But because of the main actor, I can never remember his freaking name, Andy Whitfield, who plays Spartacus in the first season. He ended up getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He found out about like right after he made the first season, and while he was getting treatment, like when the second season should have come out and nothing did happen, they decided to make like a mini series, like a prequel to the show, to keep fans interested until they can finally get around to making season 2, which is Gods of an Arena. And when they got back together to start making the show again, Andy Whitfield died, which is really sad because he was a really good actor, especially on this show. This is the only thing I'd seen him in, and I was like, he was perfect for that part. They ended up hiring Liam McIntyre to replace him for the last 2 seasons, and he's good, but he's not nearly as good as Andy Whitfield. But, I mean, the show is pretty awesome, bloody, gory. Oh, my God. Not that I know of. I accidentally bought a Region 2 copy of the second Dead Rising. No, this is the first Dead Rising movie? Yeah, the first Dead Rising movie. I accidentally bought a Region 2 version of that, and I popped it in my PlayStation 4, because that is my Blu-ray player, and it refused to play it, and I'm assuming the PS3 would do it too. But I still need to find the final season of Spartacus. It's a great show. Lucy Lawless, holy shit, is she great on that show. I'm also a huge Star Trek fan. Star Trek is one of my favorite things in the world. And while I'm not a huge fan of this show, I found this season of Enterprise at half-price books for like $12. And I had a coupon for like 30% off whatever you buy that day. So I was like, sure, I'll pay like $9 for this. So yeah, it's the first season of Enterprise. It's a decent show. It got better as it went on, but definitely not my favorite. It's probably my second to last favorite Star Trek show. But like I said, it does get better like in the 3rd and 4th season. But I needed it. I wanted to get it because this one was actually shot in widescreen with HD cameras, so it kind of translates pretty well to Blu-ray. Doesn't need much remastering. Like I said, there's good stuff in it. I especially love the Xindi stuff from like season 3 and like the way they started doing things in season 4, trying to like start to link it up to the original series, but it was like too little too late at that point. No one was really watching it anymore. But then again, I also have Star Trek the original series, seasons 1, 2, and 3. These have the original special effects from the 60s, as well as the remastered and enhanced special effects CGI. Whoa, excuse me. From, I think it was like the early 2000s when they decided to remaster it. So you have the choice of watching them either way. I prefer with the original special effects. Don't get me wrong, the new ones are pretty cool too, but I prefer old-fashioned. Like with Star Wars, I'd rather watch the original unblemished, untouched versions than the remastered ones or the special edition ones. So absolutely needed to have these. I found all of these at a half-price books. They were having like a massive like sale, so I picked these up for discount. I think I got these with the 30% off coupon too. But this is not my... I mean, a lot of people are like, this is their favorite Trek. It's not mine. My favorite Star Trek is Deep Space Nine, followed by Next Generation, and then this. So this is like my 3rd favorite Star Trek show. So there's that. Red Dwarf. You can hack a PS2 to play DVDs for many regions, but isn't a native feature. I might just at some point just buy like an all-region 4K Blu-ray player so I can watch all that stuff. I keep on meaning to buy a dedicated Blu-ray player, or now like a 4K Blu-ray player, just because I don't want to wear out my PlayStation 4 or my Xbox One X, because my Xbox One X plays 4K Blu-rays. I don't want to wear them out from the amount of movies that I watch, so I kind of need to get a dedicated player, so I don't do that. But Next Generation, man, I absolutely love Next Generation. Out of all the seasons that they released in that remastered season, or the remastered releases that they did, I only have the first 3 seasons, but I got all these at half-price books also during that sale. So yeah, season 1, 2, and 3. Seasons 1 and 2 are pretty freaking rough. They are really hard to get through. There's some questionable subject matter choices in them, and the acting is pretty bad in some of them, and the special effects are pretty bad in some of them. The writing is horrible in a lot of them. But things really started to get better in season 3, and from that point on, the show is pretty awesome to me. It's got to be hackable. Oh, yeah, I'd rather just have the Blu-ray sets. I'm not really into the whole pirating thing, but I understand why some people do it. But I'm Mr. Physical media. Gotta have it. So yeah, I still need to find the last 4 seasons of this, even though I watch it on Netflix all the time. Like when when I got nothing planned and I just made my dinner and I don't have a movie in mind that I want to watch, I'll just go on Netflix and like throw on an episode of Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or something like that. Hacking a Blu-ray player. Oh, okay. Also have the first and second season of The Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I know a lot of people had issues with it. I thought this was a very underrated show. The first season, like most TV shows, took a little while to get going, but I found it to be fascinating and a really cool addition to the Terminator universe, especially in Season 2. So it's basically everything that happened after Terminator 2. It eliminates everything that happened in Terminator 3. Maybe it's in between. They never really say it, as I remember. But yeah, it's John Connor and Sarah on the run, thinking that the Terminators are still going to come after them, and they do. But another protector is sent back, but it's an outdated female Terminator that's played by Summer Glau from Firefly and Serenity. And I think she plays a great character. I mean, all the characters in this are great. Until, like, Megan Fox's husband shows up. But in the second season, Shirley Manson shows up as a character who's doing things with Terminator characters. And it has a rad frickin' cliffhanger to the second season that never got resolved because the show got canceled after Season 2, which is a goddamn shame. I thought it was a pretty awesome show. I really enjoyed it. What's up, Saru? How's it going? Oh, do not copy movies anymore, yeah. I highly recommend it. I wish we could finally get a third season, but it's never going to happen. But, yeah, I don't think that Cersei Lannister here would be up for it. Also have... I got this from my dad's collection. When he died, my mom was like, take some stuff if you want that I'll never watch. I knew she was never going to watch this. But it's one of the spin-offs of Doctor Who, and it's the Torchwood Children of Earth. This is the mini-series that they made. I think this serves as season 3 of the Torchwood show. And I watched Torchwood on and off over the years, leading up to this. I had enough information from watching the show to be able to understand this. And when it was over, I said that was probably one of the best miniseries or sci-fi miniseries I think I've ever seen that was shown on television. It is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. John Barrowman is like... That guy's an underrated actor, and Harkness is one of the best characters on television, I swear. Yeah, as an out of James Cameron, yeah. I absolutely loved that show. And I actually just got these recently. I got the second one last week, and the week before I got the first one. We're talking V, the miniseries, and V, the Final Battle. This is the original version of V, not that craptastic one that showed up on television at the early 2010s or whatever it was. That had Inara from Firefly in it as Diana. That was terrible. All right, thanks for stopping by, Buried on Mars. I'm glad to see that you showed up. No, I'm almost done. I just got my box sets to do and we're done. But yeah, V, the miniseries, it's basically a sci-fi version of the Nazi invasion, and it's very interesting to watch nowadays with certain things that are going on, but it's pretty cool. It still holds up as far as I'm concerned. Some of the effects are still kind of wonky, but absolutely love it. And then you got the follow-up miniseries, The Final Battle, and it's good, but it degenerates really quickly into just cheap and stupid and silly. It's like a really... It goes from being like top-notch writing for an 80s miniseries to kind of like bottom of the barrel with like alien babies and shit, which have magic powers for some reason and make no freaking sense. It's just dumb. The book was great. I still need to find the actual first season of the V TV show. It only lasted for one season on TV before it got canceled. I remember I watched like the first 2 episodes of it, and I was like, back in the day, and I was like, no. Anyway, on to box sets. So, I have all the movies on Blu-ray that don't fit, either are too tall to fit on the shelves that I have for my standard Blu-rays, are too wide and take up way too much space, and I have all these laid out separately from everything else that I have in my collection. So, I have the first 300 movie. This is the complete experience, and it's almost like a novel. It's got like a little book built into it. Has like a bonus digital copy and stuff like that. It's too tall to fit on the shelf, so I have it separately. I love both 300 movies. I think they're both pretty great. The first one I really, really like. I like the second one more. I think there's more going on in it. But it's a fantastic movie, visually groundbreaking and all that. I think it's a fantastic flick. I had to own that in the collection. Magical alien babies, that's right. Like, oh, let me touch these keys with my hands, and I'm going to magically shut down a gigantic saucer that's the size of Los Angeles with my hands. Because I'm a magic alien baby. I watched it last week, and when it came to that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that this happens. It still sucks. Next up, I've got the Alien Anthology. This is the first 4 Alien films and their director's cuts. So that was the reason I wanted this, because not only do you get Alien and the director's cut of Alien that has the... there's a couple of added scenes in it, like where Ripley comes across Dallas when he's been cocooned by the alien, and he's like going, kill me, and he's covered in maggots and shit. Not only that, but you get that supremely awesome director's cut or extended edition of Aliens, which clears up a lot of issues with the movie that I had. I mean, it's a great movie to begin with, but I mean, you put those sentry guns in there, and the whole thing about Newt's parents finding the navigator's ship and all that kind of stuff. It's just, oh god, it's so much better. The whole thing with Ripley's daughter, which explains a lot as to why she latches on to Newt the way she does. Why they didn't leave that stuff into the movie, I'll never know. But I really wanted this because it has the director's cut, or the producer's cut, I think they called it, of Alien 3. Alien 3 is, I think everyone's going to hate me for saying this. Aliens is definitely my favorite. Alien 3 is probably my second favorite. I just really dug the vibe of it. I love how bleak it is. I love the color selection. I love the visuals. Yeah, the special effects are kind of weird. I didn't mind if they killed off Newt and Ripley, because if the movies are about they killed off Newt and Hicks. The movies are about Ripley, not them. So I understood why they killed them off, because it's not about their journey; it's about hers. So seeing what the original cut was supposed to be like, it is a much better movie in the original cut than the theatrical one. But that's not to say that the theatrical version is poop. I absolutely love it. But watching the alien bust its way out of a cow instead of that dog still doesn't explain why it runs around like a panther. But there's also, I cannot stand Alien Resurrection. Sure, Joss Whedon wrote it, but I couldn't stand it even when I saw it back in the day. But there's a director, an extended cut of that too, and it's not any better. It's still, I think, completely pooptastic. But the funny thing is, I have a story about Alien Resurrection. So, Wizard World it still comes to Chicago. Now it's the Chicago ComicCon. Joss Whedon was there to talk about Buffy and Angel and all that, but Alien Resurrection had come out, I think, 2 years prior to me seeing him there. So I went and watched his panel where he was talking about, he joked, I thought he was kind of a dick because he also wrote Titan AE, and he made a joke about one of my movies shut down an entire animation company. I was like, yeah, all the people are out of work now, and you're going to joke about it? You're an asshole. Anyway, I got in the line to get autographs from him. I had an Alien Resurrection script, a copy of the script, and I had the Blu-ray that came in this Alien Quadrilogy Blu-ray, or DVD set. Sorry, DVD set that I had. And when I gave it to him, he kind of rolled his eyes when he saw that I was having him sign some Alien Resurrection stuff. He was just like, oh, God, this. And I said, if they do make a 5th movie, do you think they'd ask you to come back? He goes, God, I hope not. Yeah, Frank Miller got screwed on those movies, too. I was just watching a documentary on RoboCop 3 the other day, actually. But Alien franchise, one of my favorite franchises ever. First 3 movies especially, I think, are just awesome. So I had to have that. Huge fan of those. I actually used to have an Alien Covenant poster up on my wall. Here's another one that was too tall to fit on my shelf. It's the Amadeus Director's Cut. I love this movie. I started in the late 90s to start getting into classical music and listening to classical music and stuff, and Mozart was one of the first ones that I really latched onto. And my parents were like, oh, you should probably watch that movie about him too that came out in the 80s. You're going to love it. And I watched it and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The director's cut is a lot longer, but it's a great little drama about Mozart, and Tom Hulce that plays him is freaking fantastic. I'm surprised that guy did not go further in movies. I mean, he was in this. I remember seeing him in Parenthood, and he disappeared. I don't remember seeing him in anything else. But F. Murray Abraham is freaking awesome as Salieri. And plus, you got all the freaking amazing music in it, too. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it. Why am I putting these over here? I don't know! Going in the wrong place. Next up is this box set of Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. This is the Rich Mahogany edition that's unrated. I wanted this. This is the only Will Ferrell movie I can sit through. I hate Will Ferrell. Absolutely. AVP, I have them. You might see them. I think they're in the other room. Yeah, because I have them in a slim case, both of them in one. Yeah, I don't like them. This is the only Will Ferrell movie I can actually sit through and not want to like slit my wrists because I don't find him funny. I never really found him funny on SNL. This one is because of the cast that's with him that makes the movie work for me. Like, you got Steve Carell, you got Paul Rudd, all that crew. They crack me up. This is the unrated edition, and one of the coolest things about this is it actually has a separate movie on it called... Do they have it? What's it? Oh, shit. I think it's called Wake Up Ron Burgundy. Yeah, Wake Up Ron Burgundy, the Lost movie. There was so much deleted footage from the first movie that they cobbled together a whole second movie using just the deleted footage. It's not nearly as funny as the first movie, but I mean, it's okay. It's kind of interesting to watch. But I absolutely love this movie, and it comes with this booklet, The Many Months of Ron Burgundy, and it's just like a little diary of Ron's. It's really stupid. But yeah, like I said, this is the only movie of Will Ferrell's I can actually sit through and not want to die. So I had to have it, and plus, it's really cool to have like a little. Oh, there's something else in here too. What is this? Oh, it's a pack of Anchorman playing cards. It says "Stay Classy" on it. So I ordered this used off of Amazon, and the guy had opened them. I didn't open these. Oh yeah, there's like some cards with each character on them. Oh, Fred Willard, R.I.P. Fred Willard. That battle scene with like the weather teams is one of the funniest things in movies. Oh god! And then they repeated it in the second. The second movie I can't even stand because it's just nothing but repeated jokes. It's freaking. It's The Hangover 2 with Weatherman. I'll box that up later. Anyway, next up I have the Avatar 3-disc Blu-ray set. This is the extended cut of the movie, which I do believe is better. You get a little bit more insight on Sully before he goes to Pandora and all that. And there's a couple of extra scenes where he like makes up with the guy that wants to kill him from the Na'vi tribe and all that. This isn't in 3D, but I wanted to get this because James Cameron's like direct, like his extended cuts are always better than the theatrical movie. Yeah, the second movie is not funny. I can't get this out. There we go. This thing is really convoluted to open up. It's like box within box within boxes. But yeah, the movie is so long in the extended cut that it takes up two Blu-rays, which is absolutely crazy. But I enjoy Avatar. I don't think it's James Cameron's best movie by a long shot. I mean, I enjoy it. I think it's okay. I look forward to seeing the sequels, but did I see it 15 times in the theater like a lot of people seem to do? No, I saw it twice. And I was like, you know what? Now I can wait for the home video version. I might buy a copy of it in 3D, but the thing about the 3D was, I remember when it came out in theaters, like everyone was like, oh, the 3D in the movie is just all about this depth of a field thing, and it's amazing. And I went and saw the movie in 3D, and I was like, it's okay. And then I went and saw a month later, I saw My Bloody Valentine 3D, and I was like, the 3D in this is way better than I saw in Avatar. They actually did things with it. But that's me. What's up, dude? How's it going, Charlie? I was telling everybody about our little Yuratsuka Doji story with your grandma. Had to be done. Anyway, next up I've got my Back to the Future trilogy. This is the 25th anniversary version. I got this, I do believe, off of Amazon. And it has like a little opening insert thing. All 3 movies on it. And it also has this U Control thing in it where you can play trivia while you watch the movie. No thanks, I just want to watch the damn movie. How about that? Yeah, I love the first movie. I think the second movie is actually so embarrassing, but it's so awesome. I still want to say Back to the Future 2 is my favorite of the 3, just because it has like what I would call like the Saw movies kind of did, where it was like taking what was established in one movie and like adding all this other cool stuff onto it. So we keep on seeing like parts of the first movie that we didn't get to see when they have to go back to the 50s and all that. It is just really tightly written, and it's clever and all that. And then I am not a fan of westerns, so naturally I want to say part 3 is probably my least favorite of the 3. But I still find it enjoyable. It's still fun. I'd like all 3 movies. It's not like I can't stand one of the movies. No, I like all of them. I think part 2 is the one that I end up watching the most because it's the busiest, it has the most going on, it's the most fun for me. Yep, you and neither of you saw the things I saw. See, now everybody's going to say that line online now, dude. Your grandma is a legend now. Legendary. I also have the Bad Boys 1 and 2 box set. I got this at Best Buy for like $5. They like clearanced it out. But as the first 2 Bad Boys movies on it. A friend of mine actually asked me after I saw the 3rd Bad Boys movie in the theater, like if it was worth seeing, and if it was worth going back and watching the other movies so they can go see the new one. And I said, I've never taken the first 2 Bad Boy movies as anything other than just like popcorn entertainment. They're just silly, dumb, funny action movies. You know, that's all they are. There's nothing deep about it. There's nothing going on. The 3rd movie, on the other hand, is like a real movie, which surprised the hell out of me. It took Michael Bay ditching the franchise to make like one that's actually considered good. And it's the only one in the series that actually got good reviews, which shocks the hell out of me. I still need to buy a copy of Bad Boys for Life because I really, really liked it. I thought it was really, really well made. Here's another one that was too tall to fit on my shelf, and that's the Big Lebowski, the limited edition. It's another one that's set up kind of like a book. No kid hungry. Jeff Bridges saying, don't ignore the signs. Yeah, there's like a little book in here with like behind the scenes stuff. Test your deuterology quiz. Has stuff about the Big Lebowski convention that goes on every year. Probably not happening this year. I absolutely love the Big Lebowski. I'm a fan of the Coen brothers when it comes to certain movies. There's certain ones I watch and I'm just like, no, that was dumb. Whatever that one with the man who wasn't there, I can't stand that one. But Big Lebowski, like, I had no expectations for it. I'd seen Fargo. I loved Fargo. Naturally, I was like, I want to see their next movie. And I didn't see it in the theater until it came to the Dollar Theater. Like, I put it off seeing it, and finally I was like, it's at the Dollar Theater. A friend and I went and saw it. And I had tears in my eyes. I was laughing so hard. It's essentially like one of those like Philip Marlowe novels, but what if Philip Marlowe was a dumbass? It's a mystery. It's like a whodunit like caper thing, and it's really funny and well made, and I just could not get enough of it. I still think the funniest thing in this movie, like, certain things have to happen for me to like lose my shit in the movie theater. When it comes to laughing, like to set me off, where to the point where I'm laughing so hard, like no sound is coming out and I can't breathe, and I almost like fall out of my chair. It's happened maybe 3 times in my life. One of them was with this movie, and it was when the dude is driving home and he's smoking a joint, and he forgot that he had rolled his window up, and he goes to flick the joint out the window, and it bounces off the window and lands in his lap, and he starts screaming like a bitch. He's like, ah, ah! And then he crashes the car into that dumpster. I don't know what it was about the car hitting the dumpster, but when it hit the dumpster, the car like did this like jump, and it set me off, and I like almost fell out of my chair. I was on the ground choking from laughing so hard I could not breathe. It was absolutely, I don't know what it is about it, but just did it. If I had a copy of Kung Pao here, I would tell you about the time where I almost died in a movie theater. But I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. I also have the Bill and Ted's Most Excellent collection. This is the first 2 Bill and Ted movies. This will soon be obsolete once Bill and Ted Face the Music comes out. I love both Bill and Ted movies. I think I like the second one more just because of how weird it got. The first one is great, don't get me wrong. It is awesome. It holds up, I think, extremely well. Keanu Reeves was cast perfectly as the bro. It's really fun and clever, but just the weird directions the second one takes, I think, sat with me more, or sat better with me. And I ended up enjoying that one more. I saw the second one. I saw the first one in the theater, like opening weekend. My mother took me and my brother to see it, and we loved it. And I saw the second one in the drive-in opening day, and I got so hopped up on Starbursts. I was sitting in like a lounge chair, like a lawn chair, that extended, so I was like a recliner. And I'd gotten so hyper on Starbursts that my friend tied me down to the chair with a blanket to keep me from jumping all over the place. But I absolutely love these movies, so I had to get this. This is from Shout Factory, who put out amazing product. I will be talking a lot about them in these streams because I have so many movies from Shout and Scream Factory. Yep, both of them in one set. And it's not too expensive. I think this is $25, which is not bad. There's a 4K version of this out there, but I like this one. I think I'm just going to keep this. This is the 5-disc complete collector's edition of Blade Runner. This has like every version that Ridley Scott put together of this goddamn movie. You got disc 1, which is the final cut. You got disc 2, which is that's the making of. Sorry. Disc 3 has the theatrical cut, the international theatrical cut, and the director's cut. Disc 4 is the archives, and Disc 5 is the work print cut. So what they ended up doing for the final cut, so the whole thing with this movie was the movie got taken away from Ridley Scott. They had like a really bad test screening. I don't know why they do test screenings to begin with, because one little small cross-section of America is going to tell you exactly how to make your movie or to edit your movie together. It makes no sense. And they usually don't use the demographic that they should. And they ended up adding this really bad narration. You've probably seen the original theatrical cut. There's this really bad narration. Harrison Ford sounds like he's mad the whole time, like, why am I doing this? It has a super happy ending, and it was really badly edited. It's still a good movie. It's just not great. But like when they made the theatrical or the final cut, it was like all the stuff that they took out originally, like the hint that Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, is a replicant too. There's all this like these hints in there that he is. They reshot a couple of scenes. The scene where Deckard is killing Zora when she's running through the glass windows of the storefronts as he's shooting her in the back. It was really obvious that it was a stunt woman wearing a really bad wig, jumping through the windows and all that kind of stuff. So they reshot it with the actual actress that played the part. This is like 25 years later, so she obviously looks a little bit different, but they CGI'd the age away a little bit. Yeah, but the whole intention was the movie wasn't supposed to be noir. That's the whole thing. They reshot a scene with Harrison Ford's son, who I guess at the age he was when they were making this, looked just like Harrison Ford. So there was a scene they shot in like a pet shop when he was asking around where Deckard was asking around about a synthetic snake, and he's kind of hidden by like reflections in the glass in the store shop front. But you can tell the guy looks just like Harrison Ford. It's crazy. They shot a whole bunch of new stuff, and they retooled the whole movie, and it's my favorite cut of the movie. I showed it to some friends who had never seen this before, and they were just kind of like, "That's a thing." So yeah, that's one of my favorite movies of all time, right there. Also have another one of these. Warner Brothers book things. This one is of Bonnie and Clyde. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, another one that has like a little novel inside to tell you about the making of the movie a little bit. Watched this in my high school film study class. And like I said, I'm not really into these kinds of movies, or at least I wasn't at that point in time. And then we watched this, and I was finally like, okay, I can see why people liked Faye Dunaway back in the day, because the movies that I had seen her in, like Mommy Dearest and stuff like that, she was freaking awful. So I really understood why people considered her a great actress after watching this. And Warren Beatty was great in this too. Gene Hackman's in this. I think it's one of the first movies he made. It's a really great like little crime drama, and I really enjoyed it. Like little slice of history. I think it's fantastic. Absolutely had to own that. Just like this. First time I ever saw this movie was in my college film study class, and I really had never had any intention of ever watching it. I was just kind of like, man, old movies suck. And then I watched it, and I was like, okay. I'm an idiot. And I'm talking Citizen Kane. This is the 70th anniversary. I bought this 10 years ago, so now this movie is 80 years old. Holy shit. But it's a fantastic movie by Orson Welles. I don't think this has multiple cuts. As a DVD version. The battle over Citizen Kane. Okay, so this has the documentary all about it. And then there's RKO 281, which I think is another documentary about it. But it's a fantastic movie. Orson Welles is as good an actor as he is a director, I always said. And it also comes with... What is this? Oh, it's a book about the making of the movie. And this Rosebud thing that has like all these like lobby cards that you would get when you saw the movie back in, what was this, the frickin' 40s? 1941? Holy shit. I wasn't even swimming in my dad's balls at that point in time. My dad was swimming in someone else's balls at that point. Anyway, it's a great movie. I was really late to the party on it, and once I did watch it, I was like, okay, I need to change my way of thinking when it comes to old movies. And I started watching some older stuff, and I really came to like it. So that's my gateway to like classic film cinema. Film and cinema are the same thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm also very tired, and I've almost been talking for 2 straight hours. The Close Encounters of the Third Kind 30th Anniversary Ultimate Edition. This also just came out like in a 4K edition that I actually saw in the theater a couple years back. This has all the different versions of the movie. It has the theatrical version, the television version. Was it the original theatrical version, the special edition, and the director's cut? And the other disc is nothing but special features. But you have, like, the original version came out in 1977, and there was the special edition, which was the TV version, which had some extra scenes mixed in from 1980, and then the 1998 director's cut, which is actually pretty good. But this is one of my favorite Spielberg movies. This also comes with a book, again, with, like, behind-the-scenes photos and stuff. This is probably my 3rd favorite Spielberg movie of all time. I really didn't like it when I was a kid because I'd seen Jaws, I'd seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then I saw this like way after the fact, and I was like, that's boring compared to the other stuff I've seen. I'm an adult now. So I came to really love this movie, and Richard Dreyfuss is so fantastic in that movie. He is so good. We have this box set that I got from Scream Factory of Creepshow, and this is like a... Well, it has the movie on it, obviously, but it also has like tons and tons of special features. This whole thing right here is just a list of all the special features that are on this. They really went all out for it. Interviews with a lot of the actors that are still alive from the movie and all that. It is great. And also has another one of these little books that's serving as, I think, the little behind-the-scenes stories and stuff like that. Creepshow is one of my favorite horror movies, anthology. There's a second one also. There's also a third one. We don't talk about that in this house. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I love the lighting and the way they made the movie look like a living comic book. It's great. And Leslie Nielsen. Everyone knows Leslie Nielsen as a funny guy. You watch this movie and he will creep you the fuck out. I also haven't opened this, but I've seen all these movies a couple of times, at least. But I bought this 4K compilation of all the Dark Knight movies. So I got Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I love all 3. I know a lot of people don't like Dark Knight Rises, but I loved it. It's a comic book. It's not supposed to make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, I picked this up because I had the original Blu-ray editions. I want the 4K. There's certain movies I'm really willing to upgrade to the 4K, and this was definitely one of them. I also have the extended editions of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. These are the Swedish versions. I saw the first one on Netflix the day before the second movie came out theatrically. And one had nothing to do with the other. I just happened to see it on Netflix, the first one, and I was like, I should probably watch that. I hear people talking about that a lot. And it blew my mind. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And then I just happened to find out that the next day, the sequel was being released at the Music Box Theater down the street from me. Went and saw it, and I was like, holy shit! And then there's a third one also, Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, which is not very good as far as I'm concerned. But great movies, dark, kind of disturbing in parts, but you have the theatrical cuts, which is the ones that we saw, and the extended versions are basically, these were television movies in Sweden. It's the television versions. All the stuff they cut out to make the runtime for the theatrical versions more manageable. That's what these special editions, or extended editions, are. Special edition disc, which includes a 53-minute documentary detailing the phenomenon of the trilogy, and interviews with the actors, one of which is dead now. Michael Nyqvist died not too long ago, which is pretty sad. I have all 3 of the books that Stieg Larsson wrote, and they are good. They are really, really good. They did change a lot in the movies, but I understand why. Things need to be changed to make it work for a film. Let's talk about some horror movies. How about that? We got the Friday the 13th 8-movie collection. This has all of the Paramount era Friday the 13th movies in it, starting with the original all the way to Jason Takes Manhattan, which is probably one of the poopiest horror movies I've ever seen in my life. First horror movie, first legit slasher horror movie I ever saw in the theater was Jason Takes Manhattan. Oh boy, was I let down. But I was reasonably late to this franchise because I was not allowed to really watch horror movies as a kid. A lot of my friends were, but I usually was not allowed to. The first one I ever saw of these movies was Part 7. Saw it on cable one night, and I loved it, especially the fact that there was a recap of Part 6 before the movie starts. And I saw part 7, and I was like, oh, that was one of the coolest things. Excuse me, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Hey, Mom, go out and rent me a copy of part 6. So I can watch that one now, too. And, yeah, I've kind of fell in love with the series. Certain movies in the series, some of them are craptastic. Some of them are pretty cool. 7 is still probably my favorite. It's the one with the psychic girl who kicks Jason's ass with her mind for like the last 10 minutes of the movie. It's great. Part 6 is really good because Part 6 is like the pre-Scream. It's like a self-aware slasher movie. And I think it's funny as hell. I want to say when it comes to like the original, like the trilogy, there was originally just supposed to be 3 of these movies. Part 2 is probably the best of those in my opinion because the final girl, Ginny, actually has a head on her shoulders and she thinks things through and she's not just there to scream and run away, and she's awesome. Great final girl. I cannot stand the final chapter. I do not like Jason Takes Manhattan. I think A New Beginning is okay. The first movie's good. I mean, it set everything up. Part 3 is embarrassing, I think. The one that's in 3D. Although I would definitely watch a 3D version if they released a 3D Blu-ray of it. But there's a 3D version of it on here, but it requires the anaglyph glasses, the one with the red and blue lenses. No thanks. I get migraines from those. I almost passed out and whacked my head on a table after watching Freddy's Dead in 3D in the theater. Here I have the collector's edition of the remake of The Girl with the Dragon's Tattoo. The one with James Bond in it. I think it's a great movie. It's a little bit different. It's a little more close to the book, I think, than the ones that came out in Sweden. I honestly think Rooney Mara is closer to the book version of Elizabeth Salander than Noomi Rapace is, but Noomi Rapace has the better performance. But I still think it's a great movie. I saw this on Christmas Day with my dad. That is not a movie to see on a holiday with a parent. But I think it still holds up. David Fincher is one of my favorite filmmakers. I absolutely had to go see that. Showed it to my girlfriend at the time afterwards. And she was just kind of like, it's not Noomi Rapace. I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. Noomi Rapace owns that frickin' part. But this version of the movie is the closer version of that character to the books. They both have strengths and weaknesses of their own. I like both. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. They're both great. Here's the Coppola restoration of the trilogy of Godfather films. I really love the first 2 Godfather movies. I think they're fantastic. I never had any intention of ever watching these until my high school film study class. Why were they showing us movies like this in high school? I do not know. But they did. I saw plenty of movies in high school I should never have watched in class. Oh, well, yeah, if it had I have the one with the 3D glasses too. I can't do the red and blue. It messes with my head. But yeah, absolutely had to have this. I absolutely love The Godfather. Part 3, not so much. Part 3 is like, what's going on here? There's another David Fincher. Absolutely had to have this. This one's a little bit too big to fit on the regular shelf of mine. So I have a collector's edition of Gone Girl. This was the only David Fincher movie I've never seen in the theater. I skipped it for some reason. I don't know why. I just never went and saw it. I saw it when it came out on home video, and I was like, you're a dumbass. Why did you do that? It's a fantastic movie. About halfway through, the twist that happens is so freaking awesome. And the rest of the movie is just like, what? It is great. I kind of wanted to read the book that this is based on after that. But not only does it come with the movie, which is freaking amazing, it comes with the Amazing Amy Tattletale book. That's one of the books based on Ben Affleck's wife in the movie that her mother had written. And it's pretty awesome that it comes with something like this. I thought that was a great touch. Great freaking movie. Just completely took me by surprise. I was like, why did I miss this in the theater? I'm a dumbass. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Okay, now this one's big. The next 2 are really big. Okay, so I have this giant box set from Scream Factory of the Halloween franchise. They call it the Complete Collection, 15-disc deluxe edition. It has every Halloween movie up to the last Rob Zombie movie. This was out of print. I kept on putting off buying it because it was like $200-some when it first came out, and I was like, I like Halloween. I don't like it $200 I don't like it $200 that much. But I'm not paying $200 for that. I kept putting it off, and then next thing you know, it's out of print. And I was like, shit, I missed out. So I ended up, I think it was one year when I got my tax return. I was like, I need to look this up. I need to find this. I have the money to buy it now if it's expensive. I found some dude slipping on Amazon's marketplace. So I said this thing was going for like $200 when it first came out. A lot of people on eBay were selling it for like $400, $500. I found a guy selling it for like $125. And I was just kind of like, well, you missed out. You're a dumbass. Just pay up and buy it. So I bought it. And the thing, it was already open, which is one of the reasons why it was cheaper. And it looked like somebody sat on the box a little bit on the top because it kind of sags. But other than that, it's in pretty good shape. So the thing about this is it has multiple versions of some of the movies in here. So you've got the original Halloween, one of my favorite slasher movies of all time. I think it still holds up. The music still creeps me the fuck out. This has... Is this the one? Yes. The first disc is the movie, the theatrical movie. The second version is the TV. The second disc has the TV version on it, where there's like all these additional scenes that they ended up shooting while they were making Halloween 2 to fill out like the length when the movie would show on television. It's not that great because all of a sudden Loomis looks different in some of the scenes. Like all of a sudden he's got darker hair and looks a little bit chunkier than he did in the first movie, which is kind of strange. And the scenes don't really do anything to the movie. It's just to pad the runtime for like a television screening. There's also the sequel, Halloween 2, and this also has the theatrical and the television cut also, which is not any better. This one takes place directly after the first movie, but for some reason they decided to just amp up the gore, which I didn't appreciate because one of the things I liked about the first movie was it was scary without having to resort to cheap gore. I mean, you got enough information to know what was going on, and it was scarier to use your mind to figure out what was happening. But it's still a good movie. I like the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis's character ended up being Michael Myers' sister. Explains why he's going after her instead of it just being some random occurrence type of thing. I think it was great. It's still good. This one is the one that like everybody like goes toward, but I think this is aged beautifully, and that is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, the one that does not have Michael Myers in it. Back when I first saw this, when it first came out, I didn't see it in the theater. Obviously, I wasn't allowed to watch these, but I did see it like on cable in the early 90s, I think. And I was like, what is this all about? I don't get it. Over the years, I ended up watching it a couple of times here and there, and I grew to really like it. If it wasn't called Halloween 3, it was just called Season of the Witch, I think people would be singing this movie's praises. But just the fact that this is called Halloween, it's the one that comes after Part 2, still has the 3 in the title, and there's no Michael Myers in it, everyone's like, no, poo. I think it's actually a pretty effective little horror movie. It has one of the best endings in a horror movie. Like it has a definite John Carpenter apocalyptic ending. I think it's fantastic. I think it still holds up. Yeah, it's stupid and chintzy in parts, but I still enjoy it. I watched that one a lot. And then there's Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers. This one is just the theatrical cut. There was no director's cut. I like this one too. It's okay. It's kind of just like a remake of the first movie, just with a little girl being chased around instead of Jamie Lee Curtis. And then we have where things started to go downhill with Revenge of Michael Myers. This is trash. I hate this one. I really do. They started introducing this whole thorn thing, and all of a sudden Michael Myers is like involved with druids and stuff. And what? What does this have to do with anything? It's dumb. It's just badly made. The acting in the movie is terrible. The worst character in horror movies, or one of the worst characters in horror movies, is Tina from Halloween 5. Horrible. Horrible. And then we have the one that's like the odd one out. Okay, so we have Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers. Originally, this was supposed to be called Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. And this is another one that got completely retooled in post-production. So they did a test screening, and a bunch of little kids were like, I don't get it. What's going on? Probably because they hadn't seen the other movies in the franchise, and they just came in here blind. So they went and hired another director to come back and reshoot half the frickin' movie and made it worse. So we have here the theatrical cut, which is the Curse of Michael Myers cut. And then we have the Curse of Michael Myers producer's cut, which is the Origin of Michael Myers movie, where they reinstated all of the original footage that was cut out. It makes for a better movie, but the movie's still stupid, as far as I'm concerned. It's just, this druid thing with Michael Myers is dumb to me. It doesn't work. And you can see them really trying to make sense of it, and nothing they did could do it. Yeah, they're both about druids. Part 5 has the introduction of the druid stuff in it with the mark on his wrist and everything. This is the one where they just explain it. I can't stand this movie, no matter what version of it I watch. I watch probably the producer's cut more than the theatrical cut, but it's still a piece of shit. Now, here's the one that I really like, and that's Halloween H2O. If none of the other movies had been made and it went straight from Halloween 2 to this, I would have been a happy camper. This one feels more like the original movie, which is what I liked. It isn't reliant on gore. It has a story. There's the whole thing about Jamie Lee Curtis, like, trying to cover up the fact of, or cover up her trauma of all the shit that happened, her PTSD with alcohol, and at the very end she has to like man up and just fucking face it, which I think is a great character arc for her. And the way she whoops his ass at the end is fantastic, and it has the finality of her beheading him at the end, which is great. And the movie ends with her heavy breathing over the end credits, which is exactly what happened with the first movie with Michael Myers heavy breathing over the end credits. I think this is fantastic. I love Halloween H2O. It's like my second favorite movie in the series. Fantastic. And Jamie Lee Curtis is really good in it. The best horror villain. Yeah. I actually like Freddy Krueger more, but that's just me. Then we have this abortion, Halloween Resurrection. This movie is garbage. It was just another way to milk the franchise. They worked a loophole into the ending of H2O so Michael Myers could possibly come back if that movie was a hit. It was a huge hit, so let's make another one. And this one just, no. All the no. Yeah, it would have been the best. That was the perfect way to end the series, right there. Like, okay, look, it's final. Finality. He's got no head. No, it turns out that was like one of the paramedics. And Michael Myers, they worked in the whole thing where you don't see what happens after she leaves the cafeteria. He could have done something in that period of time. You never see him. And what did he grab a paramedic by the throat, crushed his larynx, and put his clothes on the paramedic and walked out? And she actually beheaded a paramedic and went crazy and ended up in a mental institution? That's stupid. Way to ruin a character. And she said, I'll only do the beginning of this movie for you if you kill me off because I don't want to have anything to do with these anymore. Which was good for her. And then we have these two flaming pieces of horse shit. The two Rob Zombie Halloween movies. Couldn't stand this one, even though it tries to do some cool things by switching around like who lives and who dies compared to the original movie, but this remake I think is absolute trash. And then I said on Facebook, when I watched this in the theater, when the movie ended, I went on Facebook to say, hey, I was just watching Halloween 2, and I said, I felt like Rob Zombie was spitting on me from the screen the whole time I was watching this movie, because this is just way to ruin a great character like Laurie and just have her dropping, the C word all the time and just acting like, oh god, just every single character in Rob Zombie's movies are unlikable. And I'm sorry, you're supposed to root for Laurie. And the Laurie in these movies is an unlikable piece of shit, and so is every other. The only character in the movie that I think is likable is Danielle Harris's version of Annie. She played Jamie in part 4 and 5. Her version of Annie is the only likable person because the relationship between her and the sheriff, her father, is kind of realistic, and I think it was because they were ad-libbing when they were doing their scenes together, and it felt real. And every other character in those movies is just a freaking foul-mouthed douchebag, and I was like, just kill him. I don't care if Laurie dies in these. Just kill her. Next up is another huge-ass box set of the Hellraiser movies. This is the Scarlet box. This has the first 3 Hellraiser movies in it. And, oh god, I had to get this from England. This is from, I think, Arrow Video. And they primarily release movies in the UK. And every once in a while, they'll, make one of their videos or their Blu-rays available in the US, for a US version, so you don't have to, import or get, a non-region, or I can't even freaking talk anymore. I've been talking for 2 straight hours, yeah. An all-region Blu-ray player. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, they made a U.S. version of this collection for the U.S. I just said that twice. I'm stupid. But yeah, we got Hellraiser 1, Hellbound Hellraiser 2, and Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. And it also comes with this thing called The Clive Barker Legacy, which is a documentary all about the making of the films. Also has these lobby cards and all this other kind of stuff. A poster of the Le Marchand's configuration. And it also has this gigantic freaking book. Look at this thing. That's just all about the making of all three of the films, the first three original films. And it also has inside the whole I Am in Hell, Help Me in here from part 2. And I do believe the second movie, I think, I don't know if it'll say on the disc, has the Leviathan documentary on it that's actually on Shudder right now if you want to watch it. I think it might be on there. The Leviathan documentary, which is all about the making of Hellraiser 2, and it's actually really interesting. I watched that one not too long ago. Once I got Shudder, that was one of the first things I watched. I love the Hellraiser movies, at least the first two. Hellraiser 1 is probably one of my all-time favorite horror movies because it's kind of like a variation of a haunted house movie, mixed with like this family drama thing. And it's gory as hell, but the characters are interesting and things that go on are interesting and all that. And then part 2 kind of like turns into Aliens, where it went from being like this atmospheric, creepy horror movie to like an action horror movie. And I gave them props for that too, because I'm like, okay, look, they're not trying to make the same movie all over again, which is why I really like it. And then part 3 is legit an action horror movie, and it's just a lot of crappy looking CGI and bad acting. Part 3 I think is like okay, way better than Bloodlines. I really wish we could get a director's cut of Bloodlines, like the 2.5-hour cut everyone was talking about, because the one we got in the theater was another one of those butcher jobs by the Weinsteins. Let's take a movie that's 2.5 hours long and cut it down to 75 minutes. How about that? Yeah, and why does it not make sense? Because the plot is on the cutting room floor, you dumbasses. But I had to pick this one up because like the Hellraiser franchise, at least the first 3 movies, are some of my favorite films out there, so I had to get that. That was actually kind of a pricey one to get, too. It's the only way to get the third on Blu-ray. That was the reason I picked it up, too. I purposely avoided buying it because I was like... I purposely avoided buying the other 2 movies because I knew Anchor Bay was always going to just be re-releasing them and re-releasing them like they did on DVD. And I was like, I'm not falling for that shit again. And then when I heard that was being released, I was like, that's the way I'm going to go. Next up, I have the Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. Got this at a half-price books for $15. Has Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Only way I was ever going to buy a copy of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was in something like this. But the transfers are great. It looks fantastic on Blu-ray. Lucasfilm really did a great job remastering these for high def. And the first movie is, well, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade are probably my favorite movies in the franchise. I'm not really a big fan of Temple of Doom. For some reason, it just never sat well with me. But I was really glad that I managed to find this pretty cheap because I remember it was going up in price for a little while on Amazon, so I was glad I jumped on it when I did. Next up is another big-ass box, and that is the Lord of the Rings motion picture trilogy. Has all of the extended editions of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies. Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. This thing is freaking massive. Opens up and you got a big map of Middle-earth, and you got each of the extended editions of the films, as well as a little book, I think. No, there's no book in there. I thought there was. But yeah, the movies are so long, each movie comes on 2 different Blu-rays. That's how long they are, especially Return of the King. Return of the King, the extended cut, is, what, 4.5 hours long? How long are you? 263 minutes! God damn! This is the kind of thing where if I'm on vacation or something, I have to dedicate an entire day to sitting there and watching these because they take up an entire day. But I'm not complaining because they are great movies. I wasn't really a big fan of the Two Towers when it first came out. I don't know why. I felt like I was missing information. I remember Charlie was there, and I was complaining about it one day. And like I loved the Fellowship of the Ring, but when I saw Two Towers, I was like, I feel like I'm missing information. Like, why all of a sudden are there like demon dogs running around and there's fire belching dragons and stuff? Where did these things come from? And then like I watched it again, and I was like, what am I complaining about? Like, stupid. It's fantasy. So next up, we've got the Ultimate Matrix Collection. This has not only... Get out here. See, there's 4K versions of this out there too, but I will not buy it because it does not... There is no way to get this other thing along with it. So not only do we have The Matrix, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, Matrix Reloaded, which I think is one of the best sequels of all time, Matrix Revolutions, which I don't think is nearly as bad as everyone seems to make it out to be. It also comes with the Animatrix, which is not available on 4K, and that's the reason I'm keeping this box set and not getting the 4K version, because I absolutely loved the Animatrix. It came out before, well, one of the shorts in here. It's a bunch of shorts about like Matrix lore and stories that take place with characters and stuff from the movies. But the one that's about the Osiris came out with Dreamcatcher, the movie. It played before the movie, and is kind of like a setup for what happens in Reloaded. And then after Reloaded came out, the rest of them came out on like this DVD set. And I absolutely loved it. Each one I thought had its own merits and was pretty awesome. I still love it. And it also comes with this 2-disc documentary about the making of all of the Matrix films, which is great. I absolutely love the Matrix. I think they're really smart. I know a lot of people complained about like Reloaded and Revolutions, but the thing is, when was the last time you actually watched these movies? Was it when you were a kid or something like that? Because I just rewatched all 3 of these movies, and I think I like Reloaded and Revolutions when they first came out. I watch them now, and I'm like, people have a problem with this. It's not nearly as deep as everyone seems to make it out to be. At least at first, because the first movie had so much philosophical stuff going on in it. The second and third ones, you think they do, but they really don't. It's basically like the cause and effect stuff. And I think they hold up a lot better nowadays than they did back then. So I still really enjoy those movies. I also have this like collector's edition of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I found this at Half Price Books for like $5. And I had the original Blu-ray edition of it, and I was okay with that. But then I saw this for $5. I was like, why not? It also comes with like a book, The Impossible Stunts. It's like the making of the action scenes and stuff like that. You can tell this has never been opened before. It's creaking like a door. I really love Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol, and especially Fallout. I think Fallout's one of my favorite movies in the franchise. But Rogue Nation is also one of the best ones. It's more espionage-y than action-y, which I think is one of the reasons why I liked it so much. Because like Part 2 is the one that's just like all action, and I think that one is freaking awful. It does drag, and yeah, I will admit, Revolutions drags in a little bit. I think they wanted it to be a certain length, and they had to pad it out by putting some pointless stuff in there. But for the most part, I thought it was a completely satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. I know a lot of people had expectations after what happens in Reloaded. I did too, but when I went and saw the movie, I was just kind of like, I don't make these movies. Like, who am I to say how it's supposed to end? You know, they ended it the way they wanted to, and I was happy with it. Next up, I have this really hard to find, really rare Director's Cut Limited Edition of Nightbreed that I got from Screen Factory. I ended up pre-ordering it, and then like not too long after it came out, it went completely out of print. Like, they sold out of it. And it comes with not only the theatrical cut of Nightbreed, which I do not think is a very good movie. I liked it back in the day, but like watching it as an adult, I was just kind of like, there's a lot of information we're not getting here. And it just keeps like skipping around, like, you know, things have been cut out, and which it really did. Because this movie was 3.5 hours long originally, and they cut it down to, 108, I think. But then there's the director's cut, which I saw a version of in the theater. There was a theater down, it's pretty far away from me. It's maybe like a good 3 miles away, called The Portage, and there was a dude named Russell Charrington who had convinced Clive Barker that he could recut the movie to Clive Barker's original vision. He wanted Clive Barker to give him all of the deleted footage and all the any footage that he had laying around from Nightbreed, to give it to him so he could recut the movie the way he saw fit. And I saw the Cabal cut. I actually have a poster of the Cabal cut in my living room that's been signed by Ann Bobby, who plays I can never remember her frickin' name. The girlfriend character in the movie. One of the main characters. I can never remember her frickin' character's name. Anyway, they had the current version of the Cabal cut playing in the theater there, and I went and saw it with my girlfriend at the time, and it was like, seriously, like 3.5 hours long, and I was like, holy shit, this is freaking amazing. Like, all this stuff. I'm surprised the movie made any sense at all, seeing all the stuff that they cut out. Eventually, they had to trim that back because no one's going to want to watch a 3.5 hour cut of that movie. They made the director's cut, which I do think is better than the Cabal cut that I saw. I mean, they trimmed out some stuff that had no business being in there, used some alternate cuts or alternate takes from the movie. I think it holds up better now, and it has a completely different ending, which is what my main problem with the theatrical version is. The ending now makes perfect sense, and it's awesome. Oh, it's a great movie. It was an okay movie before. I think the director's cut makes it like a better movie. I'm getting all phlegmy all of a sudden. Next up, I've got my Nightmare on Elm Street collection. This has all 7 Nightmare on Elm Street movies in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and New Nightmare. I was watching these last night. I was watching Freddy's Dead last night, and I very thankfully fell asleep while I was watching it because I hate Freddy's Dead. I watched all these movies in a row over the last week at night while I'm laying in bed. Kind of appropriate, wouldn't you say? But yeah, I love the first the first Freddy movie, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's still a classic. Out of all the movies, the first Nightmare on Elm Street is the only one that gets its own disc. Every other movie in the franchise is shared with another movie on the other disc. So we got 2 and 3 on one disc, 4 and 5 on another, and Freddy's Dead and New Nightmare on the last. I love the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I still think it's a classic. Freddy's Revenge is good. It's different, which is another reason why I like it, because it wasn't just trying to remake the first movie all over again. It does take a weird twist with all the LGBTQ stuff in it. Wasn't expecting that. As a kid, it kind of went over my head, but you watch it as an adult and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. That's an interesting take. And it's cool. The first 2 movies are the only 2 movies in this franchise that actually have like legit gore in them. Everything after that, it kind of turns into like how weird the kills can get without being completely gory. Dream Warriors, the third one, was my favorite in the whole franchise. I think that was just fun to watch, and I watched it the other night, and I'd been watching these movies every night, and I fell asleep watching each one, except for 3. I stayed up for the entire part 3 because it's just so much fun to watch. I liked the female character way more. Like I said, I can't remember her name. Ann Bobby's character. I liked her way more. She's less whiny in the director's cut. Boone didn't come off as a complete, idiot. But yeah, like I've read the book Cabal too, so I knew some of the things that were going to happen. But yeah, the movie actually kind of hit me a little bit in the feels a couple of times. I just wish they used the original voice of what was her name? Babette's mom. The woman that has like that can turn into mist. Her real voice is like freaking beautiful, but they give her some man voice for some reason. Part 4, I think, is where things started to go downhill because they just started copying Part 3's MO, where it's like all these kids have dream powers and shit now. And Part 5 is boring as hell, I think. And Freddy's Dead, I think, is just bottom of the barrel. It's just like dumb. Let's make a Twin Peaks Freddy movie. No. But New Nightmare I do enjoy a lot. It's like another movie that's like a pre-version of Scream. It's like a self-aware horror movie, and I think it's really clever and fun. So yeah, definitely had to have this because Freddy Krueger is my favorite horror villain because the movies are creative. Next up, I have another one of those book versions of Poltergeist, which is one of the only horror movies I watched back in the day, and this movie fucking scarred me. Not in the way with clowns. It was a little bit with the closet, and it was a lot with the tree. Because we had a tree very similar to the tree that attacks Robbie in the movie in our backyard, and although my room was facing the backyard, I really didn't have a good view of that tree. But the thing was, like, when I would go outside and it was, like, getting dark, that tree just looked creepy as hell to me, and I'd always think about that thing trying to eat Robbie in the movie. But it's a fantastic horror movie. I think it still holds up. The effects are fantastic, and it's still debatable who directed this movie, if it was Tobe Hooper or Steven Spielberg. But there are some Steven Spielberg moments in here that I don't think Tobe Hooper had in him to direct, so there's that. But I think it still holds up. I think it's still a fantastic movie. Here is the 4K 4-movie collection of the Predator series. It has Predator 1, 2, Predators, and The Predator. I bought it because Predator 1 is pretty freaking amazing. Predator 2 is okay. Predators, I think, is... The Predator, on the other hand, is one of the biggest pieces of shit I think I've ever seen. I was really excited that we were getting a new Predator movie and that Shane Black, who was actually in the original Predator movie, was going to direct it. He was going to write and direct it, and I was like, that's going to be fantastic. And like I went and saw it, and Jason from Corpse Flood Gaming like texted me the weekend that it came out. Did you see the Predator yet? I was like, no. When you see it, text me. We need to talk. And I was like, okay. So I think it was like 3 weeks after it came out was when I finally had time to go out and see it, and I saw it, and I texted him from my seat in the theater. I'm like, I don't know what you want to talk about, but I don't feel like talking about this piece of shit. And he was like, exactly. And he was like, we both were like, this movie was garbage. So much stupid shit going on in that movie. Stupid dialogue. I could not stand it. But the first movie still holds up. I actually have like this set, and I also have a separate version of Predator in my collection that's in 3D. Which is fantastic. Predator in 3D is one of the best things ever. I talked about it in my second 3D Blu-rays to watch on your PSVR video that I did. And I was talking about Alien series earlier. I have this 3-disc collector's edition of Prometheus. I bought this because I liked the movie a lot. And also because not only does it have a Blu-ray of this and a DVD of the movie, it also has the 3D version of the movie too, which actually wasn't nearly as good as it was in the theater. I saw this on the IMAX with my, at the time, girlfriend, and we were both like, the 3D... This movie was shot in 3D, so it should have been fantastic, kind of like Avatar looked and the way that Resident Evil Afterlife looked in the theaters. On home video, it looks flat as shit. It does not hold up at all. But the movie's still fantastic. I still love Prometheus. I think it's great. It's a prequel to the Alien films. A lot of people had problems with it. I did not. I thought it was very fitting, although I wish it did connect into the franchise a little bit more. I read the original version of the script for Prometheus when it was still called Alien Origins, and it was all everything tied up neatly in a bow that leads right to where part 1 of the original Alien movie picks up in one movie. It was tight, it was cool, introduced a lot of new ideas at the same time. I just wish that they didn't bring in Damon Lindelof to like do that whole like, oh, we have to have this mystery box thing going on here now, like J.J. Abrams likes to do. Let's introduce some things, and we'll introduce some ideas that are not answered in this movie because we're going to make this into another trilogy. Stop making frickin' trilogies, just make a movie. But I like it. I like the way it turned out. I also have this Puppet Master Volume 1 collection. It has the first 3 Puppet Master movies, and when I ordered this actually from Full Moon's website. That dialogue exchange that happens in the hotel room between Thomas Jane and Olivia Munn, I think is the most eye-rollingly bad thing I've seen in a movie in like years. Where he talks about her, you know what. When I ordered this from the Full Moon website, they had discounted it. I did not think that I was going to get a signed copy of it, signed by, what's his name? Charles Band. Oh, I forgot his name too. It's so late, I'm like losing my mind. But yeah, this has the first 3 Puppet Master movies in it. The original, which I think is okay. I haven't watched it in a long time. I haven't watched this version of it yet. Or this Blu-ray edition to see how it looks. But, I mean, I've seen it plenty of times back in the day, and I think it was okay. It was like a nice setup to like things that could be better and further in different movies. And then we had part 2, which I think is not that great. But part 3 is where it's at. Part 3, Tulan's Revenge, which is like the prequel to the first 2 movies, which is all about Tulan during the Nazi occupation. And this one's where it's at. This one is fantastic. It's really well written and well acted for a Full Moon movie. And it's clever in parts. And then we have like part 4 and 5, which goes back to the present and is just like absolute craziness, which is kind of cool. But the Puppet Masters are pretty neat. There's the new ones that are coming out, which are all about like the Nazi regime stuff, which is kind of strange. I don't know what their idea behind that was, but there's like 6 of them in that series now that are all about Nazis and stuff. I have this 4K collection of the Purge movies. This has the first 3 Purge movies in it. I still haven't seen the first Purge. The movie that's called The First Purge. I have seen the original Purge. It's a lot of blue disc tapes. Yeah, and I'm still talking about it. It's been 2.5 hours, dude. I really enjoy the second 2 Purge movies, which is the reason I bought this. The first one I'm not a big fan of. That choice that kid makes in the movie to let the guy in the house, like, yeah, you're helping somebody, but at the same time, you just killed everyone in this house by doing that. Good thinking, kid. You could have found an option. There should have been a third option there somewhere. But the Purge Anarchy and the Purge Election Year, I think, are great little pop boiler movies. It's pretty awesome. A lot of really interesting social commentary, which is kind of going on like right now. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I need to watch The First Purge, the movie that's called The First Purge. I need to watch that one. I still haven't seen it. Another one of these book editions from Warner Brothers. I have The Right Stuff. I found this at Half Price Books for $2 straight. $2 slim bucks. Letter from the director, Philip Kaufman. That's interesting that this still has this, and I got this at Half Price Books, that it came with this little insert. I'm surprised that would have been lost, but it also has a book in it. The movie is so long, it's on 2 discs. Is it? Oh, no, one's features. Okay, they managed to fit it all on 1 disc. How long is this freaking movie? Does not say. Shit. But I saw this back in the day with my parents on, I do believe it was cable, and I really liked it. It's about like the first few space flights and all that. It's really, really fun. I need to watch it again. I bought it and I haven't watched it since I haven't seen it since like back in the day. I have not watched this copy of it yet. But this one is one of my favorites, and this is the Star Wars Rogue One, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story Collector's Edition. And the reason I bought the collector's edition of this is because it's the only way you can get a copy of the movie in 3D. Got the 3D Blu-ray right there, son. Took me so long to find this. Came out, the weekend that it came out, I didn't go out looking for it. I went out the following week to go pick up a copy, and no Walmarts had it, no Targets had it, no Best Buys had it. I had to get it off of eBay, and I ended up paying an extra $20 just for the privilege, which kind of sucked. But this has the movie on Blu-ray, 3D Blu-ray, and has a bunch of extra discs, which nothing but supplemental stuff, and a copy of the movie on DVD, which I could give a rat's ass about. But the thing about the Star Wars movies, the new ones, I think I like the standalone movies more than the mainline movies. I do like Last Jedi, but I'm not a fan of Force Awakens. I'm definitely not a fan of Rise of Skywalker. But I love Rogue One and I love Solo, so absolutely had to have a copy of that. Next up is the Scream 5-film set. Has Scream 1, 2, and 3, plus these 2 different documentaries about the series called Still Screaming and Scream the Inside Story. I love all the Scream movies, all 4 of them. I think they're all pretty good in their own way. Some are better than others, obviously. I'm not really big on Part 2. I mean, I like Part 2, but I don't think it's my favorite. I do like 1 and 3, and I think 4 is kind of cool, too. The documentaries are the reason I wanted to get this, because you can just get the Scream movies individually, but I really wanted to get the documentaries because Daniel Farrens, who actually wrote Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, is now a horror movie documentary maker. And he did the 2 documentaries on this, and they're pretty interesting. But deconstructionist horror movies. Almost parodies of themselves, which is interesting. And I got the hiccups again. So how's everyone doing tonight? Still a lot of people watching. It surprises the hell out of me. This is officially the longest stream I've ever done. I think I probably should have left the TV Blu-rays out of this one and done that for the next one. Next up is another one of the books. This one is 7. Yeah, it is obscenely expensive now. I don't know why. The week that came out was the same week that I think Doctor Strange came out on Blu-ray, and I could not find either of them in 3D at all anywhere, which surprised me. But yeah, the Warner Brothers book version of 7. This is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I like this one more than Silence of the Lambs. David Fincher is a freaking genius. This movie has one of the bleakest endings ever. But it is interesting, and it is horrifying, and it's, like, I wouldn't say it's fun, but it's intriguing while you're watching. You just want to keep watching it. We watched this for my podcast, the Movie Starting podcast with one of my friends. And, you know, we're recording a commentary track. We ended up just watching the fucking movie. We said stuff once in a while. Like, there was really nothing to rip on because we kind of MST3K the movies a little bit sometimes. A lot of the time. And we couldn't think of anything funny to say about the movie. But we ended up talking a little bit about, like, set design and, like, the acting and, you know, the shot selections and stuff like that. The only joke I remember making while watching this was at the very end with the whole what's in the box thing, when Brad Pitt starts screaming, "What's in the box? What's in the box?" I go, "It's my dick in a box," and that was the only thing that was kind of funny that any of us said that night. Another one of the book editions is The Shawshank Redemption. This is another movie I was really late to the party on. My brother saw this, I think, the moment it came out on home video, and it became like instantly his favorite movie of all time. I just never got around to watching it. I didn't watch this until I think 2009. I rented it from Netflix on disc, and they, shipped it to me, and I finally watched it, and I called my brother. I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I finally see the light." It's a great movie about a bunch of people in prison. It's based on a Stephen King short story, I do believe. But acting, plot, directing, everything about it. Frank Darabont, he did nothing but Stephen King adaptations for a little while, and this was the first one he did. It's just, everything about it is just perfect. Really tugs at the heartstrings too. This one was a little bit too tall to fit on my shelf, so I mixed it in with these box set ones. But here is a collector's edition of The Social Network, the Facebook movie that David Fincher made. And I really had no interest in seeing this one, even though David Fincher is one of my favorite directors. I really didn't have any interest in this because I was like, it's about Facebook. How interesting can that be? Well, turns out a lot of backstabbing going on, a lot of drama. So I definitely had to check it out, and I understand why the score won Best Score that year from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, because it's absolutely fantastic. And it's like if Nine Inch Nails went film score. But it's a really great movie. I really enjoyed it. Didn't expect to like it, but I loved it. Here is the high-definition trilogy of the original Spider-Man movies, the ones with Tobey Maguire. Charlie, were you there with us when we saw Part 3? I think you were there. I think it was me, you, and Ken when we went and saw Part 3, and then we ended up whining about it in the Denny's afterwards. But I kind of like the first movie. I love the second movie, and I cannot stand Spider-Man 3. I think Spider-Man 3 was the worst superhero movie of that era. It's worse than, I think, Daredevil, the theatrical cut of Daredevil and Ghost Rider. But yeah, I absolutely had to have this because this is one of the movies, other than the X-Men films, to make superhero movies profitable. Superhero movies could be good and they can make money. They don't have to be stupid cheeseball crap. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite out of the three of these. And then the loves of my life, right here. We've got the original motion picture collection of the Star Trek films. This is Star Trek the Motion Picture, Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek III The Search for Spock, Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, Star Trek V The Final Frontier, and Star Trek VI The Undiscovered Country. And it also has a Blu-ray on here called Star Trek The Captain's Summit, which is just a bunch of random documentaries and stuff. The one thing that's on there that I absolutely love to watch on this extra disc, this Captain's Summit. I'm sorry. Craptastic. Okay, Captain's Summit is the one where it's all the actors sitting around talking. My bad. Yeah, it has, I'm thinking of a different disc. I think it's actually on the other set. This has Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, Patrick Stewart, and Jonathan Frakes all sitting around a table talking about their experiences working on the movies and the TV shows. What I'm thinking of is actually on the Next Generation set. My bad. But anyway, love Star Trek. It's one of my favorite things in the world. The original motion picture, I like it. It's obviously a little slow. The director's cut that came out on DVD, which we never got on Blu-ray for some reason, is a way better version. But I still think it had a lot of interesting ideas, and the special effects and the music are just absolutely top-notch. They still hold up to this day. Part 2 is still my favorite. Wrath of Khan is still my absolute favorite. Love everything about it. Search for Spock I really enjoy, too, even though there's kind of some dumb shit going on in it. I'm not a big fan of The Voyage Home. I just think the humor is dumb, and they could have... It's like an unofficial trilogy of films within the series. So you got 2, 3, and 4 all kind of like an interconnected story. So it's like one long story broken up into 3 chunks. And you got these 2 first parts of it that are really dark. And then the third one is just kind of like all that loss and death that happened in the other 2 movies. Let's have a party! And it's just kind of like, what? And the music in the movie is absolutely horrible. And what is with this Irish jig sounding music in the movie? It doesn't make any sense. And all the shit that happens in those movies, all the shit that Kirk did, and they're just kind of like, here's your shit back, by the way. No. But it gave us more movies. And then there's always Final Frontier, which, F that movie. It is so bad. But I think Undiscovered Country really made up for it. Even though it does feel a little bit like an extended version of like an episode of the Next Generation, it is the movie that the Final Frontier should have been. Undiscovered Country is fantastic. It's great. David Warner, who played Gorkon in Part 6, I think is such an underrated actor. He is kind of amazing in that movie as the Klingon Chancellor. And the whole assassination thing is really cool. There's a lot of really cool starship battle stuff at the end. That's really neat. And then I also have the Next Generation motion picture collection. And this has Star Trek Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. The extra disc in here is called Evolutions, and this is the thing I was thinking of. It has this... It's not really a documentary. It's the last day of the Las Vegas Star Trek Hotel. You know, that big, huge Star Trek emotion ride that they had. And there was like a Quark's bar restaurant. There's a museum of Star Trek memorabilia in there, and it was great. There was 2 different Star Trek experience rides in that hotel. It's about the last day of it being in operation, and you meet all the actors who've been working there, most of them since the very beginning, the people that designed it, and then they have like this closing ceremony that's like heartbreaking to watch because all these people have been like working there for so long. And even like the hostess, the girl who played, or the actress who played Kalar, Worf's wife in Next Generation, she's the one that's emceeing the closing ceremony. She's bawling her eyes out, and she doesn't know any of these people. It's just really hard to watch. It's because these people look like they had so much fun doing it. But Charlie can attest to this. I saw Generations in the theater, I think 7 times. And I think it was mostly because I was just super stoked that we got a Next Generation movie on the big screen, because I was a huge Next Generation fan. Once it came to home video and I started watching it more and more, I started to see the flaws in it, and I realized how bad it kind of is. At least to me, I think it's kind of bad. The whole idea of the Nexus is stupid. I think the only thing that really works in that movie to me is Soren. Malcolm McDowell's character. He's really good as the villain. He gets a lot of really good lines. I love when he like pokes Picard in the ribs in a 10 forward, where he gives him that like "time is the fire in which we burn" line. It's just like right at the wrong moment for Picard, because he just found out that his brother and his nephew just died. That scene where Picard cries in his ready room is pretty good too, where he's talking about that to Troy. But outside of that, like, I love Data as a character. They ruined him in that movie with him becoming a fucking stand-up comedian. And like the whole idea with Kirk joining Picard at the end, I just think like they should just try to make the best Next Generation movie they could and not have to worry about like this whole passing of the torch thing. I think it would have been better that way. But that's just me. And then there's First Contact, which I loved back when I first saw it. I think I saw that in the theater about 7 times, and then I really started to dislike it once I started to really think about the whole idea of the Borg Queen. I really hate the idea of the Borg Queen. I think it just ruined the Borg completely. I like the idea that they had no leader, that there was just faceless drones just doing what they do. Not one person who's obviously not a drone. You know, it has a personality unlike everything else. Makes no sense. Although I do love Alice Krige as the Queen. I think she should have gotten an Oscar nomination for making what could have been a nothing role like really creepy sexy. She pulled that off so well, but I just don't like the character itself. I think the idea of it is just, it ruined the Borg. Insurrection I like a little bit. It's kind of like watching The Voyage Home. The humor is really stupid in it, like really stupid. Like having Data talking about his boobs firming up makes me like roll my eyes every time. But there's a lot of really cool ideas in it, and the action scenes are pretty cool. It's like almost like watching a Star Trek Western. Nemesis is the one that I like the most out of the Next Gen movies. I mean, a lot of people really don't like that one. I really do. Not only is it like the most action-oriented of the theatrical Next Gen movies, but I really like the idea of like the mirror with Picard and Shinzon. I love movies where like a character that you really have come to love, like Picard. You know, we've 7 seasons of a TV show and 4 movies. You really know him at this point. When he sees like the mirror version of himself, like a version that went bad. I love stories like that, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why I gravitate toward it as much as I do. And there's not a lot of comedy in it. It's like a serious Star Trek movie, and Yeah, I just love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I like it so much that I am still trying to finish my Nemesis sequel screenplay. I've been writing a Nemesis sequel. I actually wrote one in like the early 2000s, and then I lost the hard drive that my script was on. So I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago, I started rewriting it from memory, and it kind of turned into something else. And I need to finish it. It's like I'm right at the end of it, but I just can't think of a way to end it properly, satisfyingly. Yeah, like but there's also a lot of bad things going on in Nemesis that I think could have been fixed if they put those deleted scenes back in, like the whole mind rape thing with Troy. There was 2 scenes with that happened. There's the one in the bedroom, and then right afterwards, she's trying to go to the bridge to talk to Picard about it. It happens again in the elevator, and it's even nastier there. And I think you really needed that to have the whole revenge thing going on later on in the movie. There's also all these scenes about Picard talking about finding out that he's a clone to Troy, and you really see him break character, like legit getting angry about finding out about this stuff. I mean, you don't really see him react to it, except him pouting while Shinzon's talking to him that first time. There's a build up to Data killing himself. There's a whole scene where Data's asking Picard about like death and stuff like that, and it kind of builds up to the idea that Data's gonna like kill himself at the end of the movie. There's a lot of stuff they cut out that I think they should have put back in. I wish there would be a director's cut, but there probably will never be. But outside of that, I think it's still my favorite of the Next Gen movies. But anyway, moving on. Got only a few more things to talk about here. Then I can drink a lot of water and rehydrate because I'm not only losing my voice, but I'm also sweating like a motherfucker. The Force Awakens in 3D. This collector's edition took me forever to find. It was pretty common when it first was released. This came out, I want to say 6 months after the original Blu-ray release or home video release of Force Awakens. And then like 6 months later, J&J was like, hey, here's a 3D edition. There you go. And it was also one that I was putting off because at the time that this came out, I was really considering getting a new TV, and I was trying to get a 3D TV because at this point I'd bought a bunch of 3D Blu-rays just because they were cheaper than the original, like just I would find them cheaper than just the standard movie on Blu-ray. I would keep on finding these, like it has a 3D version in there with it cheaper for some reason, so I would just buy that just in case I ended up getting a 3D TV, or I went to somebody's house who had a 3D TV, I'd be like, hey, I got a movie, you want to watch it? I got it in 3D, you can check it out. So I bought this with the anticipation of actually going out and buying a 3D TV, and that never happened, but then I got this little thing called the PSVR, which allows you to play 3D Blu-rays in it, which is fantastic. And out of the 2 Star Wars, the mainline Star Wars, well, actually, now it's like 4. I have Solo in 3D, I have Rogue One in 3D, I have Force Awakens and The Last Jedi in 3D. I'll probably never buy Rise of Skywalker, ever. This one's probably the worst in 3D. I remember it looked really cool when I saw it in the theater, but on home video, it's just like flat. I don't get it. The only one of the... Solo looks pretty good in 3D. It doesn't look nearly as good as it was when I saw it in the theater, but out of all of the ones I have in 3D of the Star Wars movies, Last Jedi is the only one that looks really good. Like, it still holds up. So, there's that. But, had to get this. It also comes with... And then it has the movie on Blu-ray, 3D Blu-ray, a DVD, and a bonus... And it also has this digital code, obviously. Anyone want a digital code for Force Awakens, which you can watch on Disney Plus if you really want? I don't know why it needed to come in this gigantic-ass box, but it did. And I think this table is going to break. This is heavy as shit. I need to start putting these things somewhere else. God damn, Chris. Okay. Next up is my Superman motion picture anthology. That is a dumb way to describe this. I ended up getting the Canadian version by accident, but it plays just fine on a US Blu-ray player, which is great. So this has a lot of versions of these movies on it. So get this. Comes with Superman the movie, which is the original 1978 theatrical release, which is the one that I probably saw the most as a kid. Did not like it at all when I was a kid because I found it excruciatingly boring, but I'm an adult now. I like story. Then the second disc has the extended version of the original Superman movie. which is great. It's like the television cut, I want to say. I think they added in another 20 minutes to it, I think. It doesn't really have the time code on here, how long each one is. Oh, actually, 152 minutes for the director's cut, or the extended version, 143 for the theatrical. So it's like what? An extra... Oh, it's like an extra 9 minutes. Whatever. I remember enjoying it more, but both versions are good. And then it has the theatrical version, the 1980-81 theatrical version of Superman 2, which is my favorite of the Superman movies. I think it's the most fun, even though it's the most effed up one when it came to the post-production process. And then it has the 2006 Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which, depending on who you are, my opinion on the matter is, it is dog shit. The Superman flying around the Earth at the end of the original movie and turning back time was originally supposed to be the ending for Superman 2. But when the Salkinds... Because they were shooting Superman 1 and 2 at the same time. Richard Donner was shooting both of them. They were about halfway, 3/4 of the way through shooting part 2, and the Salkinds were like, okay, we're going to stop production. We need to finish making the first movie, put it together, and get it in the theaters. And they hadn't shot the ending for Superman 1 yet. So they ended up cobbling together the whole time thing and used the ending for part 2 for part 1, and they're like, we'll come up with another ending for part 2 later. And then when part 1 became a huge hit and made all this money, they were like, we don't need to hire back Richard Donner. We'll just hire some guy and we can have him make the movie we want to make, because Richard Donner, I guess, was fighting a lot with the Salkinds about his version of what he wanted the movies to be. And they brought in some guy that they can use as a pawn, and that guy ended up reshooting enough footage to get his name on the director's card for part 2. The only thing is, the combination of Richard Donner's ideas and Lester's ideas, the director that they brought in, ended up working together really, really well, I thought, and made the movie super fun. But when you see what Richard Donner had in mind, when you watch the Donner cut, it is cheesy as fuck. It is just dumb. Like, Lois throws herself out of a, 80th story window to prove that Clark Kent is Superman. If Clark wasn't there that day, she would have died. Yeah, I can't stand it. The special effects they added in, I think, all look like crap. It's dumb. I just can't stand it. I know a lot of people do like it and think it's the better version. I'm not one of them. Also has Superman 3, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Both of them I can't stand. Superman 3, outside of the scene where Superman fights, or the evil Superman fights Clark Kent, that's probably the only scene in part 3 I like, because that was just really well made. Part 4 is just canon pictures bullshit. Like, let's make a movie that would normally cost about $100 million and give you $3 million to make it. How about that? Superman Returns, and it actually has all of the deleted scenes from Superman Returns, not in the movie, but available to watch, which is pretty awesome. Like the original opening of Superman Returns, where Superman actually goes to try to look for Krypton and finds nothing but debris. It's pretty awesome. I really enjoy the first one. I really enjoy the second one, and all the other ones I can take it or leave it. Especially part 4. Superman Returns, I think, is really boring. I really liked it when I first saw it, but later on, I was like, no. But that's just me too. But I had to get that because now I have like every version of Superman, and now we got the Man of Steel movies and stuff like that, which are fine on their own. This one's awesome. If Jason is still here, give him a boner looking at this one, because this is his favorite movie of all time, and he hasn't been able to find a copy of this one yet. But I have the Korean special edition of Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This has not only the 4K version of the movie, but it also has a 3D Blu-ray version as well. And we got a 4K... So James Cameron remastered the movie in 4K and also made it in 3D for like a limited theatrical run, which actually came out on my birthday, whatever year it was that it came out, like 3 years ago. And the thing is, when that version came to home video, we were going to get a 4K version. We were not going to get a 3D version at all. I had to go to a Korean seller on eBay to get a copy of this. And this is the official Korean version. And it is absolutely fantastic. The 4K version is absolutely beautiful. But the 3D version works. Like James Cameron, I don't like Titanic, but I kind of want to see what the 3D version of Titanic that he released theatrically looks like, because if he can take this movie that was made in like 1991 and make it look amazing in 3D, I can't imagine what Titanic's going to look like. But the movie's still one of my favorite movies of all time. Just nonstop action, and it's really smart and well made. Everything about it is fantastic. This and Aliens are like my two favorite James Cameron movies, bar none. So absolutely had to get a copy of this. Yeah, they were running out of money, but still no excuse. Why would you want to make a Superman movie if you don't have the budget to make it? That's my problem. I also have this Tim Burton collection on Blu-ray. And I'm not a big fan of Tim Burton anymore. I used to back in the day. But I want to say the last movie of his that I actually enjoyed was probably Mars Attacks, which I watched the other day. Maybe like a month ago. I watched it on this compilation. And actually, like, I liked it back in the day. I watched it now, and now that I've seen more alien invasion movies and stuff over the years, the satire of those films in Mars Attacks is freaking brilliant. I was laughing so hard. Oh my god. But this has Batman, Batman Returns, Beetlejuice, Mars Attacks, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. So, the only movies on here that I will watch are Batman, Batman Returns, Beetlejuice, Mars Attacks, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I turned Charlie and the Chocolate Factory off about a quarter of the way through it when it first came out on home video, and I've never seen The Corpse Bride. I don't really care, because I'm actually not a big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, and that's in the same vein as that, so I didn't bother watching that. But it also comes with a book, which is like all about little blurbs and stuff about each one of the movies. It's kind of neat. Got this on Amazon for, I think, $35, which for the amount of movies that you get, if I were to buy them individually, probably would have cost twice as much. But just to have Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice like in HD, that's awesome in my book. And then we have this 3D version of Tron Legacy, one of my favorite films of all time. I'm a huge Tron whore. I've actually recently gotten back into like adding things to my little Tron collection that I have in my other room. I've actually started hanging things on the wall. I have like the identity discs from the original movie and the sequel. I have them hanging on the wall now. I have my LPs of the Tron soundtracks hanging on the wall also. I just got the Tron 2.0, the entire line of Tron 2.0 action figures in the box. I'm going to hang on one wall. I just bought the storybook for the original Tron. I'm going to be trying to buy the novelization, which is actually kind of expensive pretty soon. But I have like a little Tron shrine in the other room, just long story short. And I saw Tron Legacy in the theater, I think, 5 times. I absolutely loved it. I saw it with some coworkers one day, that saw it again the next day with some friends, ended up taking my parents to see it, and then saw it with a couple more friends. I saw it like, I think 5, 6, actually probably 6 times. I absolutely loved it. And I saw it in 3D probably half the amount of times that I saw it in the theater. It's fantastic in the theater in 3D. The light that's on the people's suits in the movie kind of stood out like away from their suits in 3D, and it was this really interesting looking effect. You don't really get when you watch it in 2D. And the thing is, I was expecting when I made those 3D Blu-rays to watch on your PSVR videos that this would have been probably like my number 1 or 2, because this is one of the best 3D movies I ever saw in the theater. Home video, it's like flat. It really disappointed me. I was like, I couldn't wait to get this copy. I got this at a half-price books. I got it pretty cheap. And I brought it home, and I just could not wait to watch it in 3D. And I put on the PSVR set, and I was watching. I was just like, huh? This is not nearly as cool as I remember it being when I saw it in the theater. Not to say that the movie's not awesome. This is another one of those movies where, like Nemesis, like Star Trek Nemesis, where you get a character who gets to see like the dark side of himself in Clue, which is another reason why I like this movie as much as I do. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. Absolutely gorgeous looking, design-wise, everything about it. The music by Daft Punk, holy shit. Everything about it is great. I'm so mad that they haven't made a third movie in this series yet. It is left open for a really unique sequel, like where all the digital stuff is going to come into the real world. Why that hasn't happened yet, I don't know. Yep, that is an awesome Journey song as well. I love that one too. And the last movie I'm going to talk about tonight, everybody, is another collection. This is the 3-film collection in 4K of the X-Men films. So it's the original X-Men, X2, and X-Men The Last Stand. Got this at Half Price Books of all places. I went there one week with the intention of buying some video games, and they actually didn't have a whole lot of video games there that day when I went. But I went to the movie section, which is like the last thing I do before I leave, and like a bunch of stuff that I've been looking for in 4K. This is like right after I got my 4K TV. Were there like dirt cheap. So I picked this up. I picked up what was it? Apocalypse in 4K. I picked up all these movies, like the Purge set in 4K. I picked up like I want to say like 10 different 4K Blu-rays while I was there that I actually was like ones I really wanted to buy. They had them there. Someone unloaded their entire collection before I got there, which is like my superpower. On eBay, I'm able to catch people slipping on video games that are normally pretty expensive, and I get them really cheap. Or I go to Half Price Books just after someone sells their entire collection to them, and I go there right as they put the stuff out on the shelves, and I get it before everybody else. But yeah, I love the X-Men films, or some of them, a few of them. I really like the first X-Men. X-Men X2 is fantastic. It's probably one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Last Stand, not so much. Although, I think the only thing I like in The Last Stand is the music. It was just a big mess. But out of the three in this collection, X2 is my all-time favorite. Absolutely had to have this. And it looks beautiful. I spaced this one out. I watched each movie one day after I came home from work. I came home one day and I watched X-Men, came in the next day and watched X2, came in the next day and watched X-Men 3, and I fell asleep. But yeah, X2 still holds up completely. I think it's still great. And Part 1 is pretty good, too. It's like a warm-up for Part 2. But yeah, glad that I have all those. And that is all the movies I'm going to talk about tonight. That is my DVDs, my TV shows on Blu-ray, and and all the box sets that I have. Next week, I'll be just starting on my standard Blu-ray collection, like all the stuff that I just have in my collection, which is a lot. The last time I checked, I have like almost 1,000 Blu-rays total. God damn, 3 hours. This is officially the longest stream I've ever done, and I'm feeling it. My throat is like dry as shit. I can't get enough Gatorade down my gullet. I'm going to sleep good tonight. So I'll be back next Thursday with a hopefully shorter live stream, covering a good chunk of my Blu-ray collection. And those are the ones I'm definitely going to be able to talk about a lot. I'll try to make it a shorter one so I can actually talk about each movie a little bit at least. So far, that's just, like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But I thank each and every one of you for coming. This is really awesome. There was like a lot of people actually like waiting for me to start the stream today, which like never happens. There's usually like one or two people waiting. There was like 5 or 6 when I started, which is great. And everyone's like stuck around, which is awesome. So yeah, I'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central for the next part of this. I'm still going to be trying to put out some edited material. I definitely need to get that top 10 NES games thing out for Captain Algebra. Like I said, I just did that collaboration for Captain Algebra's channel about the Genesis music. So that kind of got me back into the habit of editing again. It actually took me a little while to get used to it again, because it's been like 5 months since I've edited anything. It's available to watch after the fact, Charlie, so you can go back and watch everything you missed. That's the magic of the YouTubes. So I'm going to try to have that video out as soon if I have time. I got to work on the podcast this weekend, so I'm going to try to if I can. I'm also going to start streaming on Twitch again, and also yesterday the 4th episode of the Super Enabler Brothers podcast came out over on Corpse Flood Gaming's channel with me and Jason, where we talk about a lot. And that was also, like tonight, the longest one of those we've done. That one is like 2.5 hours long. It was a lot of fun recording it, though. We hadn't done one of them in a long time, probably like a month and a half, almost 2 months, so we had a lot to talk about. So go over to Jason's channel, Corpse Flood Gaming, and check that out. Check out what we got for our backlog roulette in that episode, too, our new backlog roulette spins. And yeah, I'll be back next Thursday. I hope to see you all there also. So I will talk to you later. Have a great evening and stay safe out there with everything that's going on. It's kind of freaky. And now for a Q&A. Hell to the no. I will fall asleep sitting up and you'll hear me snoring for 3 hours. So like I said, have a great night, everybody. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Talk to you all later.